It's set up there.
Discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed nay. Motion carries. I'm going to make one just slight adjustment. We had a highway department update. Before we get into that, we do have some members from the public. And I think Mr. Piccola wanted to share a few things, so I'm happy to give the 4 to 5 minutes. You can use it however you like.
Thank you. I just want to, am I allowed to ask questions or?
This is just your chance to speak. We're gonna have discussion time when we get to the resolution.
I'm just curious how much the county is willing to spend on this rails to trails deal. I've been doing some research, and to convert current railroad bed from the condition it's in, number one, all the research suggests that the scrap metal you tend to make money off, other municipalities have ended up giving the scrap metal to the bidder and having to pay additional money to get rid of it. So that's one thing. And then underneath that, you have the railroad ties, which you have to get rid of them, which is an extreme expense. I've been told up to $18 per railroad tie plus shipping. And then to convert from that point to a walking trail with a gravel surface, it's in the neighborhood of $200,000 to $300,000 per mile. For an asphalt surface, it's closer to $1 million per mile. And that doesn't include any bridges or culverts have to be replaced. For a 60-foot man bridge that covers, for just people to walk over and or ride a bike, the cost of that construction at today's rate is $545,000 for 60 foot. Now, the bridges over the Black River, we all know, are 300-400 feet long. So I don't even know what that would cost. And then if you're going to do a multi-use trail, you need a minimum of 12 feet. So 2 side-by-sides or whatever can pass your snow wheels. Well, the railroad bed that goes through my property right now at the crown is the width of the tracks, which is probably 5 feet. In order to get that to be 12 feet wide, I can't even imagine what that's going to cost because it's 12 feet high, that berm is, through the swamp. So, not to mention, the only access is from pasture land. And my land is more than a mile in, so you're going to have to back every single dump truck in there to get that to width. And then depending on what the width of the railroad bed is that you're purchasing, the right of way or land you're going to own through my property, you probably aren't going to be able to do that without taking land from me, in which you guys said you wouldn't do, take any land from landowners. And on that note, I went and spoke to an attorney, and he told me that my deeds do not have revisionary rights. So you can put your trail through there if you so decide. But there are deeds out there, not many, but they're out there that do have revisionary rights. Just mine don't. So I would like to know what you're going to do when you come to one of them, or if you've researched all the deeds to know that there aren't any, because I was told they're out there by an attorney. I guess that's all I have to say is just, I hope you know what you're doing to us landowners that are opposed to this, and I hope that you realize you're probably spending $30-40 million over time to do this trail. And for a few people to ride their bikes, and I understand that you think you're doing it for the future benefit of Lewis County, so people can come here and move here, younger people, because you're worried about the population base getting older. But I think more importantly, internet, high-speed internet, because my kids all moved away. One lives in Missouri now, one lives in California, and jobs. My 3rd child works at Kraft, and I don't know how long he's going to stay there, but that's about the best job around here, unless you're going to work for the government or the school system or the hospital. So I don't see how this is going to benefit the aging population of Lewis County when it's going to be a burden. On average, it costs $1,500 per mile of trail to mow the grass annually. And that's some bids from municipalities on the internet. And that's just to mow the grass. The rest of it relies heavily on volunteer work for trimming trees and doing everything else that has to be done. And then if you throw ATVs in the mix on a gravel surface, the maintenance is way higher. Just some things for you to consider.
Thank you.
Can I have your name again, sir?
First name is Larry, last name is Pacola, Pacola.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Barry Linedecker. For over 20 years, I worked for Stevenson Environmental. We were part of the biggest company in the United States for doing cleanups. What you are buying here could possibly be a nightmare. The last job I ran was $150 million just to clean up a railroad yard and 5 miles of track. You don't know where they had their pits. They used to treat the ties right beside the trails. All they did was dump coal tar in them, dump ties in them, pull them back out, and retreat them. You already hit contaminated ground when you dug into for the county building. I mean, I can drive by there, I can smell the benzene in the air. That's why you did not remove the dirt, you just stockpiled it. The fuel loads you did take off got shoved over the bank behind Top Notch. Well, I did some fast numbers on my data. If you only had to remove 5 inches of soil, because it has to be, everybody has to be trained, it has to be done in a certain way, you're looking at $20 million to remove 5 inches and replace it. I mean, that's the chance you're taking. And as for your data on our population dropping, you gotta realize too, we're changing as a society. We were farm-based. My grandfather's family had 11 kids. My father's 5. We have 3. We don't have big families anymore. It costs $330,000 to raise a kid. No one's gonna go out and have 11 kids anymore unless they have a farm or something where they can use them. So our schools are naturally dropping in children. I mean, it's common sense. And you base your data of the people who wanted this on 500 people. How many in the county? And what 500? Where were they located? Were they located along the trails? None of us got asked. So that's all I got to say.
Thank you very much. Could you state, did you get his name?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Next presentation for today is Tim Hunt with the Highway Department update.
You got 3 minutes, Jim. Tomorrow is my second year anniversary, so I thought it'd be a good time to give you an update where we're at with things. So I wanted to try to put together a report card of where the roads were and where the infrastructure is. So Brian had asked me a question of how would you judge the effectiveness of the highway department? In my mind, it's very simple. Are our assets improving or declining? And hopefully they're improving. So I wanted to kind of give you a baseline of where our assets were, the inventory, inspection, conditions, and a plan to try to make them better. So let me give you a little bit of what we've been doing and what our assets look like here in Lewis County. So we bought a few iPads for the guys. We set them out in the field, and as they're doing their work, we started to collect some data about what actually exists out there. So right here is a list or a layer of all of the signs in Lewis County. This summer when they went out and fixed signs, they actually took pictures of them. They located them with the iPad on the map, and we actually can, you can see a picture of the actual sign if you want. They're in there, all the signs. There's a little over 3,000 signs in Lewis County right now. They also rated them so we know which ones need to be replaced, which ones are in good, fair, and poor condition, just to kind of give us an idea. So we can turn off the sign layer. We can look at our guide rail layer. This one was pretty shocking when we went out and actually mapped all of the guide rail. And I'll show you some of the data that we were able to collect. You'd be shocked at how much money we have in guide rail out there. We also have the culvert pipes. There's about 1,200 of them, but that is not current right now. That's the last layer that we need to kind of get up to date. But we have our box culverts. There's 38 of those in Lewis County. And then we have our bridges. There's town-owned bridges, 89 of them. And then there's county bridges as well. So, county bridges and town bridges. So that's a little bit of what we did to go out and collect the data. Now, to actually do road inventory, I purchased a service where You actually mount a smartphone in the pickup truck and you just drive the roads. And what it does is it takes it and runs it through artificial intelligence, and then it rates the pavement condition. So the lighter colors are the pavement conditions in Lewis County. There's 250 miles of road that we have. The lighter color is in good condition. The dark color is in poor condition. So right now, out of the 250 miles, this right here is basically from Lowville down to Constableville. That road condition, it represents about 90 miles of road that's in pretty poor condition. So that's kind of where we've got to focus. I want to show you, like you can take, this is Wood Battle Road, and this is actually a video. If you click on any section of the road, it'll pull up the video, and that is what Wood Battle Road looked like at the beginning of this summer. You can see all the transverse cracking. The road was really deteriorated to a point of failure. And you can go down through and take a look at that. Now what happened is the cheapest way to rehabilitate that, it doesn't fix it, but it buys us time, is to actually go out and chip seal that road. Chip sealing is 1/10 of the cost of paving a road. So you can see what that road looks like right now after we chip sealed it, if the internet's gonna let us go. So that's that same road right now. So that was chip sealing it, and that's our intention, is to try to focus on the remaining 90 miles of road to surface treat it, buy some time so that we can get in there and start paving. Right now, we pave about 10 miles of road a year, and with 90 miles of road that's in bad condition, it'd be 9 years to try to get this up into shape. So we're gonna try to very quickly accelerate that through some chip sealing to get us there. So what does all of that mean? Let's take a look at what some of that data means. There's 250 miles of road, and I used a very conservative estimate of $300,000 to pave a mile of road. Josh could probably tell us that that's very conservative, and it's probably 3 times that, depending on how you do it. But I wanted to use a really low number, which means we have $75 million worth of roads sitting out there in Lewis County right now. We have 3,159 signs. If we assume that a sign is $300 a piece, that means we have $947,000 worth of signs out there, almost $1 million worth of road signs. There are 89 bridges at $1.5 million a bridge. We have $133 million worth of bridges in our inventory. The box culverts, there's 36 of them. The Gregg Road box culvert that we just replaced was $600,000. So if you take 600,000 by those 36 box culverts, we have $21 million worth of box culverts. The guide rail, once we mapped it all, we have 85,967 feet of guide rail. The bid for guide rail right now is $140 a foot, which means we have $12 million worth of guide rail kicking around Lewis County right now. Heavy equipment and trucks, there's 35 trucks and pieces of heavy equipment in our fleet, and they're valued at $6.6 billion right now. So the total asset value, and I don't have the culverts yet, but that would be a pretty big number once we get that done. The total asset value is $250 million that we have that we're trying to take care of and manage in Lewis County. So let's look at what that means from a cyclical needs, because I try to look at everything as on an annual basis. You can't obviously tackle $250 million unless you have a plan, and how much do you have to take care of it. So the 250 miles of road, if we assume that a road's gonna last 20 years, and that's a pretty big assumption, but we'll talk about how we can get there. That 75 million divided by 300,000 means we need $3,750,000 a year to keep up that road system. That is our CHIPS money. Our CHIPS money is actually $3.4 million that we get from New York State to pave roads. So basically, it's not quite keeping up, but not too bad, pretty close. Bridges, there's 89 of them at $1.5 million a bridge. The design life on a bridge is 75 years. That means we need to do $1.7 million a year. That is our federal money that we get every year, the TIP money. So we need to really do basically a bridge a year, some years 2 bridges. And if we,
pretty much what we have been on pace.
yeah, pretty much on pace. So those 2 things are really in great shape, really good place. The signs, 947,000. If we assume a sign lasts 10 years, we need about $94,000 a year to keep our signs in good condition. The budget's been 40,000. I upped it this year to 50. So we're going to try to start keeping that on a plan. Box culverts, we need about $288,000 a year. Same thing, 75-year design life. So with the number of box culverts we have to do a box culvert every other year, basically. Guide rail, with that many feet of guide rail, if we assume a guide rail is going to last 20 years, we need about $600,000 a year to keep our guide rails in good condition. So just a little kind of idea of what we're up to. Equipment and trucks, with that inventory, if the truck lasts 12 years, we need $552,000. We put together a plan that roughly will keep us under that and is a little more aggressive. We plan on selling a truck every 6 years, but then using the residual value from selling it to buy that down. So keeping that number a little bit lower than that right there. So culverts, like I say, we haven't done yet. So it gives you a little idea of the annual needs of what's going on. So let's look at our operating budget. Total asset value of $250 million. Our annual operating budget is $8.7 million, or 3.5% of the asset value. To put that in perspective, if you have a $200,000 home, 3.5% is $7,000 a year. That's to pay your mortgage and to keep your house in good shape. So roughly right that same area. The budget's actually pretty adequate if it's well managed. I think we can maintain the assets and keep them in pretty good condition. So asset management, obviously there's three components: maintenance to extend the life of it, and for customer service. Repairs to keep things in good condition. Sometimes somebody hits a bridge, you got to go out and fix it. Somebody runs over a sign, you got to fix it. So you got to repair things as well. And then you got to plan for the replacement. How long is it going to last, and when do we replace that? So the depreciation. So let me show you a little bit on the roads, the report card on the roads. We have to sweep every road in Lewis County, 248 miles. We do that every year. We took that from 8 weeks to 2 weeks, and we did that by the towns helping out, as well as actually renting a vac truck to come and do it, as opposed to us taking a tractor and sweeping it out into the road, scooping it up with a loader. The reason we did that is we're spending 8 weeks with all of our crews sweeping roads, and we weren't doing some other things that were really important to our road network. So trying to reduce the amount of time we're spent sweeping. Mowing, right now we mow every roadside twice a year. That's 500 miles. We do that also with the towns. The towns help us in many cases, and where they don't, we actually do it ourselves. So we're able to do it twice a year. The sealing of the roads, the chip sealing, this is something that we never consistently did. But you really should seal a road every 6 to 7 years. And to do that on a 6-year schedule, we need to seal 41 miles of road a year. This year we did 47 miles, so I would say we did pretty well there. Striping of the roads, also we didn't really do on a cyclical basis, but in order to stripe every road in Lewis County every 3 years, we need to stripe 83 miles a year. This year we did 79 miles, so pretty close to where we need to be. The shoulders, cutting the shoulders so that the water can get off the roads, that in order to do that every 6 years, we need to do 41 miles a year. We've never really consistently done this at all. This year we were able to get 25 miles done, or 24.57 miles. We're really going to push hard to get this done. This is a really important thing to get our roads to last 20 years. If the water can't get off the roads won't hold up, and we see that a lot. What happens is the water gets to the edge of the road and it can't go anywhere. It soaks underneath the road. And if you're driving down the road, you'll see about this far in, the pavement's cracking right down through there. And that's because it got soft and the vehicles are breaking the edge of the pavement. So it's really important that we keep those shoulders cut back. Ditching, we need to keep our drainage open. We have not been very good at this at all. We need to do about 41 miles a year. This year we did 10. And tree work, if we went down every 10 years down a road and just look for dead trees that might fall in the road, we'd have to do 25 miles of that a year, and we did 10. So we've never really been very proactive at managing the dead or hazardous trees as well. So it gives you a little idea of the report card of what we got to do and how we got to get there. Brush with a boom mower, we really haven't done any of that, but we're going to start to focus more on that, because the more you keep the brush back, the less tree work you have to do. So they kind of, as you don't do that, that brush becomes trees, and then you've really got to get at it. So paving, this is what we've done a lot of in Lewis County, is we've tried to pave our way out of the problem. And if we're gonna pave a road every 20 years, we gotta do 12 miles of road. This year we did 10. If our roads don't last 20, if they last 10, that number's gotta be 24 miles of road. And that's really what we tried to do here. We tried to pave a road really thin, because that's all we could afford to do, an inch, inch and a half. And we tried to pave lots of miles of road, but at the expense of not doing a lot of this maintenance. So the hope is we're gonna start doing some maintenance. We're gonna get our roads to last longer, and we can dial back a little bit on just straight up paving. So that's the plan. So the bridge program, very similar. We got 89 bridges. They go out every spring and they wash every bridge to get the salt off them, because the way to extend the life of steel bridges is make sure they're not corroding. So they were able to wash every bridge, and they've been pretty good about doing that. Every other year, we go out and we seal the concrete decks of the bridges. This year was an off year, so we didn't do any of those this year. We inspected all 89 of them. We cut the brush around all 89 of them, and then they took and removed all of the sand berms so the water can get off the bridges, because once again, drainage is really key to that. The flags, the state inspects every bridge every year, and if there's flags, we have to fix them. We've been able to keep up on that. We have one flag out there right now. It's on Shibley Road, on a bridge on a town road. That bridge needs divers to actually repair the flag. It's scoured underneath the water. And they're coming in the spring, the divers are, to repair that bridge.
You're not the driver.
I am not gonna go with that. That's, nope. But yeah, it's a pretty specialized technique that they actually go down in the water, divers do, and fix that. So we're gonna start next year when we're sealing the decks. We're gonna inspect all the decks, and we're gonna get on a program for replacement of the bridge decks themselves. And we're also gonna start looking at all the bridge joints, because when the joints fail, then water gets on the bridge bearings and it shortens the life of the bridge dramatically. And if you take, like, next spring, we're gonna do Laura Street, we're gonna replace all those joints. That Laura Street bridge is probably, I'm gonna guess right now, a $20 million bridge. And we wanna keep that bridge as long as humanly possible. So we're gonna start focusing on that stuff. Our signs, the 3,159 signs, they've inspected all of them, they straightened a bunch, we didn't really keep track of it. They did replace 278 of them. If they last 10 years, we need to do about 316 a year. And this is what it looks like. 2,619 of them are in good condition. 278 are in excellent condition. Those are the ones we replaced. There's 186 in fair, and 53 are replaced. So next year, guess what our work plan is? So when I'm sitting in front of you next year, hopefully there won't be any replace, and the fair number will go down. And that's kind of how we're going to manage every one of these assets. This is the guide rail inventory, and I want to show you why I think it's really important that we start focusing a little bit on guide rails in Lewis County. There's 85,000 feet of guide rail. This right here is the guide rail that was put up on the box culvert in Gregg. And that's how a guide rail should look. See the way that's terminated? It comes down to the ground like that. This right here is what we have a lot of in Lewis County. That's called a boxing glove, where they just terminate the end of the guide rail like that. Problem with that is an intrusion hazard into your car. So if you're driving down the road and you accidentally look at your phone, just saying, and they get off the edge of the road and they run into the end of that, it's coming right through their car. It's going to come right into them. And that has not been allowed for a long time, these guide rails right here. They're no longer allowed. So what we're going to start to do is pick off some of these right here, just for safety reasons. These are really short spans usually. They're over the bridges and box culverts, but it's really important that we start to address those.
Is that steel, that piece on the old one?
Yeah, this one, well, and that's
That
even
piece right
scarier,
there.
Joan, is that top rail right there, that's
Yeah.
angle iron. That's steel. That does not give or flex, and that will tear a car apart.
Right. So you would be removing that?
Yes, we're gonna remove that, and we're gonna replace them so that they look like this. They're gonna be box bead.
Joan thinks after you've done this presentation for everybody, you probably should do that like soon.
So I wanted to be a little careful how I said
Just
some
tell
of
me
this,
what
but.
road, just tell me where that is.
I know, Joe's doing. No, it's just stuff that we've gotta be better at the maintenance of it
Yeah.
and keeping things up to date. But so here's a summary of all of that. If I were to give you the report card, 250 miles, 100 miles in poor condition. 89 bridges, the state rates them every year, 1 to 7, 7 being brand new, 1 being failure. That bridge has got to be replaced. The average in Lewis County right now is 5.79. That's where we stand, a little over 6. So not bad. Box culverts, 32 of them, 28 are in good condition, 3 are in poor, and 1 needs to be repaired. And we're gonna replace 2 of those next year on West Road, so we're gonna be in great shape there. Signs, I showed you this, so we're gonna get that going. And then the guide rails, we've got a plan to start to address that. And then in the spring, we're gonna start inventorying all of our culvert pipes. So that's a little bit of what we're gonna do. And I wanna kind of go over the budget and the priorities in the budget. The budget is really simple. Being a highway superintendent is really simple. You guys hand me a bunch of money and I buy 3 things: labor, equipment, and materials, and we try to fix roads with them. That's all there is, really. But the question is, the proportions with which we spend it is very important. So equipment is 11% of the budget, labor is 28% of the budget, and materials is 61% of the budget. What happens if we're not paying attention is the equipment cost goes up at the expense of labor and materials. Or we get too many people here and that gets too big and we're not buying the right materials. So we got to manage each of those 3 buckets very carefully. And I want to show you some of the things that we're talking about. Do we have people with no equipment? Now, when I got here, what we had was a lot of equipment with no people to operate. So we got rid of 17 pieces of equipment because we had more equipment than people. We had 5 loaders. We don't have enough people to run 5 loaders, no sense having it. And then you end up repairing it and keeping it. So we want to look at utilization of equipment. Do you have equipment with no people, which we did? And my question is, would you rather have 10 people with shovels or 1 person with an excavator? So when you hire somebody, you got to make sure they have the tools to make them productive. And that's really what we've been trying to do, is right size the labor with the tools to try to make it as efficient as possible. It's not perfect. It's still not perfect, but it will evolve. And every time we hire somebody, you got to think about the tools they need to do their job. Hiring somebody and going, oh, all it is labor? No, because 1 person without the right tools isn't productive for the county. So we got to make sure that they're balanced all the time. Equipment and attachments should help us. We're trying to make everything with very high utilization. So you want your tools to be kind of the Swiss Army knife, I guess, so that you get higher utilization.
So just a point on that, the labor, since Tim has been here, we have had a lot of retirements and we've tried to right size that labor pool. And we were very divided, as legislators had pointed out in the past, we were divided with bridge crew, road crew, sign crew, maintenance crew. As we've had these retirements, we've tried to funnel more and more of that labor directly to road labor, rather than maintenance and signs and some of these other things.
Trying to get everything, a pretty streamlined organizational chart. We had a lot of supervision and not.
And we even eliminated an office, an office position and added one on the road. So, the highway department has not grown, but the positions that we have, we've reallocated to fit.
Directly to fix roads.
So are you saying you don't have dedicated crews anymore, Ryan? Is that what you just said?
We have a couple people, for bridge crew, but
We have 3 in bridge, we have 1 in signs, but we used to have 2 people in signs. And when they retired, we replaced that with 1 person. And then the other person went into the road crew.
and then mechanics.
Because what we found, like with signs, it really only requires 1 person except when you're out installing signs. So you need 1 person and then a second person about 2 hours a day. So what did we do? We hired 2 people, and then instead of 1 person working a full-time job and 1 person working 2 hours a day, they both work 5 hours a day, and we called it good. Well, I'm not okay with that. I'd rather have 1 person working full-time in the sign shop, and when they need help installing signs, they can go over to the road crew and say, can you give me a guy for the day? And today we're gonna go out and install signs. And that's the way we're doing it, and it's working out great. So that's the kind of the philosophy, is making sure we're getting as much as we can out. We want to manage our materials as well. Are we getting what we pay for? So we've been improving our specifications. One of the things that we never did is use state specified materials, and we never tested for materials either. So for example, asphalt, I don't know what we get. We don't test it. Whatever goes down, goes down. Good enough, right? Well, I'm spending a lot of taxpayers' money on pavement. I want to make sure we get what we're supposed to be getting. So we put in testing specifications, and this year we had Atlantic Testing Laboratories on site testing the material to make sure we got what we wanted.
And what was the result?
The result was exactly what we'd hoped for, and partly because the vendors, prior to bidding, were told that I was going to change the specification and I was going to be testing. My goal is not to trap anybody or to hurt anybody, it's to raise the expectations, that's all. So it worked out pretty well. And we're going to constantly be doing that, looking at creating specifications and testing to make sure we got what we said we were going to do. We want to purchase the highest quality material, state specs. Managing our equipment, same thing. Pieces need to have high utilization. We want to buy the Swiss Army knives, loaders with multiple attachments, all of our equipment with multiple attachments. We want to buy higher quality products so that we can sell them and get good residual value when we get ready to sell them. And if we are lucky, we can sell them in Lewis County and help some of the towns increase their fleet as well. So focus on uptime and labor efficiency. And this is one of the things with older and outdated equipment that people don't understand is I go out to cut shoulders and I've got 10 or 12 guys out there and the grader breaks. For 4.5 hours, I got 10 guys standing around doing nothing. So uptime becomes very, very important in a short season. So if I can,
nodding over there.
you know the feeling, don't you? It's brutal.
Compounds quickly.
And I'll be honest with you, this year, the mowing tractors are all at that point where they need to be replaced. And we started to mow roadsides this year and every tractor was broken. And with the supply chain issues, we couldn't get parts. And we missed almost 1.5 months of mowing roadsides because the tractors were broken. And how do you explain that to the taxpayers? We just couldn't do it. We just couldn't do it. That's where having a good equipment plan so that you're replacing them before they get to that point is really important. And the same with snowplow. I mean, nobody really wants to hear that we didn't plow the roads because the truck was broke down sitting in the shop. And if you don't manage your fleet correctly, then the next thing you know, you got 5 spare trucks because you can't count on anything going out, but you have to plow the roads. So you have twice as many as you need. So that's what we're trying to kind of do is shrink that down and keep the uptime and the efficiency going. So managing the labor, and by the way, I gave this presentation to all the employees before I gave it to you guys, so they're aware of all the things we're talking about, and they agree with it, surprisingly. Managing labor, it's about doing the right tasks. If you really want to get the most out of your employees, it's not about pushing them harder, it's about pointing them in the right direction. And that's what we talked about, is doing some maintenance, doing some things to make our roads last longer instead of reacting to problems all the time. Having the right tools, it's been a huge, huge issue. The bridge crew never had any tools to use at all. It was just 3 guys in a truck. We got them a mini excavator last year and they were unbelievably productive this year. They went around to each bridge. They have a mowing head for it, so they mowed all the brush down. They dropped that off, took the ditching bucket, cleaned all the sand berms up to get the water away from it, and they went to all 89 bridges this year just by having the right tool. And then they got a compactor plate, and they were able to drive guide rail posts, and they were out doing guide rails. So they have really become productive just by having one piece of equipment. Having good working conditions. Obviously, I appreciate everything you guys have done to help get them into a new highway garage. That's going to make a huge difference in morale and focusing on safety. One of the things that I have absolutely black and white on is I do not ever want those guys to operate a piece of equipment that isn't safe. If a truck is not safe, it will not go out of that shop. I would rather not do the job and have to come to you guys and say we couldn't do it than to send somebody out and ask them to do something that isn't safe. So I really focus pretty hard on that. Continuing education, I've encouraged all the employees to start taking some classes and learning a little bit more about their job so that they can do a little bit better job. Small things like replacing a culvert pipe. There's a proper way to do it and an improper way to do it. And when you don't do it correctly, that's when you get that bump in the road. Boop, in the spring. Sending them to drainage classes, things like that, so they can properly ditch a road makes a difference. So I'm really kind of pushing that type of activity with them as well. So for 2023, more maintenance, shoulders, ditches right away. We've got to improve on that. More sealing of the roads because that's going to buy us time until we can get them paved. Less paving because the only way we're going to be able to do the other things is to back down a little bit on paving. And more contracting of services so that our labor can actually get up here and do these things right here. So that's a little bit of the plan. We plan on sealing about 100 miles. We're gonna try to seal every road between Lowville and Constableville this next summer to get caught up and buy some time. So we don't lose the roads and they don't blow up completely before we can get there and pave them. So we're gonna be very aggressive. We're gonna slip line a bunch of culvert pipes that instead of digging up the road, they actually drag a bag through it, they blow it up, and then they cure it right in place. And we have some very large pipes that actually would be very expensive to replace, and it's much cheaper to do this. One of them is right there at the intersection of Pine Grove Road and number 4 Road. That's a 96-inch pipe that goes underneath the road, and you'll notice there's a dip in it because that pipe is actually starting to fail, and we're gonna go in and slip line that pipe. That's one that's
I think the residents of Pine Grove Road would be a little upset if we put them out of business for another summer.
yeah, if we take that out and actually replace it, they'll.
Just in the box.
Bridge joints, we're gonna do the Laura Street bridge joints. We're gonna do the 2 box culverts on West Road. We're gonna focus on some guide rail. And then High Market, Mackey, we're gonna finish Mackey and High Market next year. That's the paving plan. And we're gonna bid that a couple different ways just to get price comparison and see what we can do. And then we're gonna stripe all roads every 3 years. And we're gonna focus on doing it earlier in the year. And by having a plan, we can't stripe roads till we chip seal. So we're gonna chip seal in May. We're gonna try to, as soon as we're done chip sealing, then we can go on to other activities. So we're gonna start putting right in the bid that the roads have to be striped no later than July. So we're gonna try to push that farther into, or earlier in the year, so you get a little more bang for your buck. So that's my report. If there's any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Who determined what signs and where? Was that a county thing or a state thing or?
Road signs?
Yeah.
Which brings up a really good question, both on guide rail and signs. One of the tendencies is infrastructure creep, I call it. So somebody calls up and says, cars are speeding by my house. Can you put up a hidden driveway sign? That'll slow them down. And we go, okay, yep, we want to make you happy. We run up, put up a sign, right? So one of the questions I have is that 3,100 signs necessary? Or is it just happen over time, right? Now we have a manual, it's called the Manual for Uniform Traffic Control Devices that we're supposed to follow.
That's New York State.
New York State, yep, law that we're supposed to follow. There's very little penalty if we don't follow it, but we are supposed to follow it, and there is liability if we don't. But we do tend to put up more signs that are necessary, cattle crossings. There's all sorts of optional signs,
Well,
right?
since you've done the signs, you put up signs where there weren't signs before. And that, at least that's what a couple of people have told me that lived on a particular road. Or it got changed from a yield to a stop.
I have done that. I have changed some yields to stops. That's a function of traffic volume. And almost all intersections in Lewis County at one time were yields. They were not stops. Almost every one of them. We've been looking at all of those and determining whether that's appropriate anymore.
So that, I'm asking, is that your decision or is that the?
It's a little bit of both. It's a little bit of both.
And I'm not criticizing,
No,
I'm just curious. Now, also, the same person told me, when she goes the other way, there was a yield sign by the railroad tracks that had never been there before, and the tracks are never used.
That one I don't know about. That might have been the railroad that did that. So the railroad up in Harrisville is getting ready to be used again. And we got a letter from the railroad and from New York State saying that we need to check every crossing, check the signs at every crossing, that they plan on running trains this fall.
Well, I let her blame it on you.
Okay, well, that's fine. No, that's good. I've got broad shoulders. No, in fact, if anything, I would say my own criticism is when people call, I'm really harsh on giving new signs because that number goes from 3,000 to 3,500. That's significant.
Yes.
And I bet you there isn't a week that goes by that we don't get called for a hidden driveway, a children at play, which children at play signs, by the way, are not allowed. But people don't know that, and they hate it when we tell them that, but they don't want them. They create liability because you're telling the public that it's okay for children to be playing in the road. And the NYMER has come right back and said, absolutely not, you shouldn't do it. You're creating liability for the municipality by putting them up, because children should not be playing in the road. So those are going away. Some of those type signs, cattle crossings, we gotta go back and look, is there still an active farm there, right? It might have been put up 10 years ago. So when Chris is out, Chris Drew is our sign guy now, I've asked him to start looking at all of that and determining whether the signs need to be there at all. So I'm probably more aggressive at removing them than putting them up.
Maybe you ought to change from children that play to adults that play.
Yes.
But anyway, you had, in shoulders and ditches, you had two numbers there. You had like 24 miles and 10 miles equaling 34. I didn't understand what.
Oh, the reason I did that is, we actually, like cutting shoulders, we only cut 24, but we also paved 10 miles of road, and we did, so those shoulders are in good condition.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? That's the 34. So it was basically what we paved plus what we went out and were able to do above and beyond that.
And my time is done.
Ian, can I ask a question?
Yeah, please.
What would you say prevented you from doing the chip sealing, the amount of chip sealing you wanted to do this year? What might you run into? Is it cost? Is it not enough labor? Is it not enough time?
Chip sealing has been a little bit of time issues, just having the resources to do all of those things that we just talked about. And that's why I'm trying to do, shorten the amount of time we're sweeping so that we have more time to do some of the other stuff. The biggest barrier for chip sealing is the CHIPS program itself, right? The vast $3.4 million that we spend every year is CHIPS money. The rules with CHIPS is that if I chip seal a road and I use CHIPS money to do it, I can't touch that road for 10 more years. So 8 years from now, that road blows up and you want me to pave it, I can't.
Well, not with chips.
Not with CHIPS, right? So in the past, highway superintendents have been very reluctant to chip seal because how are they gonna pay for it? What I did, and I'll be very honest with you, is I play an accounting game with CHIPS. And it's not a bad accounting game, it's not doing anything wrong. But when we pave a road, they'll pay you not just for the pavement, they'll pay you for your labor and your truck costs. Well, guess what? The county's already budgeted for the labor and truck costs. So I put that on CHIPS, freeing up county money that you've already given me for labor and truck costs, and I use that to chip seal. That way the road isn't tied up, So that's how I've been able to get that 40 miles done. This year, you gave me in the budget money for 2 box culverts on West Road. I'm gonna take those 2 box culverts, I'm gonna put them on chips because they're definitely gonna last 10 years. They're gonna last 75 years. By putting them on chips, I'm gonna take that money that you gave me for the box culverts, I'm gonna use the chip seal, and that's how I'm gonna get 90 miles done this year without tying it up. Does that make sense? We're just kind of putting it in different buckets so that it works.
I think one thing, Tim, that you guys are doing great this year is looking at the foundation. Like you said, get the water to drain, trim the shoulders. That's the biggest problem we have in upstate New York. And coming from the highway industry, I think New York's still in the top 5 for red flag bridges in the country.
Yes.
And having a grade of 5.5 out of 7 is pretty darn good for this area. I mean, one thing too, looking at it, you can pave a road, you can put an inch of top coat down, and hopefully it lasts 3 to 5 years. One thing to look at is maybe have that 3-man crew with a mini, with the attachments, 6-wheel dump truck with a little trailer. They can go out and do drainage structures, small pipe repairs, do the bridge repairs, the joint repairs, to complete the foundations or the underlying surface that's failing. And then in turn, the following year, your prep work's done and you can put the proper foundation, put the proper top coat down. So it'll last the minimum of 10 years.
Right. Absolutely.
One of the things that I've learned a lot, having Tim on our team the last couple of years, but we, I think, traditionally looked at our highway department as a construction crew. The bridge guys would physically build 1 bridge a year. That's all they did. That means they didn't wash, they didn't get the sand off, they weren't doing it. How often have we pulled our own highway guys to do county construction projects? At least 2 times since I've been here. The mindset that Tim has brought in his department of these $200 million worth of assets, not a construction crew, you know? That's the way we need to think about it. And I think just changing that mindset hopefully will allow us over time to get in a good rhythm with that stuff.
It's very common. I mean, even highway departments themselves tend to look at themselves as construction crews. And you can't build roads and maintain them at the same time. And the other thing too is you gotta look at what we're good at. And certain things we don't wanna contract out, cutting shoulders, digging ditches, it doesn't make sense to contract that out. But paving, there's companies like Josh works for that's all they do, and they're way better at it than we are. So those are the things, you gotta look at each task and go, which one makes sense to do in-house and which one do we contract out?
How many open positions are you hiring for right now?
Right now, I believe we have 2. 2.
That's pretty good, isn't it? Would you say?
Yeah, I think we're in pretty good, I'm not in a panic mode. I think we're in good shape. And I see some changes happening in the economy that it's gonna get a little bit easier here to hire. So, and that's the other thing too, is that we can, if I'm down 2 staff members all summer, I can choose to contract out a little bit more work.
Sure.
And as opposed to doing it in-house, right? So we can balance it until things right themselves.
Yeah. Okay.
Tim, there's a bridge on 177 that we've had some problems with. Is there any movement on correcting that? I think it's a state responsibility.
It's a state bridge. I've talked to the state DOT about that bridge. They know that it was designed poorly. The approach to it is too steep. They have no intention they've tried to fix it. The only way they can fix it is to replace that bridge. And that bridge is not slated to be replaced for any time soon because it's not structurally deficient.
Is it the one in New Boston?
Yeah, when you come down pretty steep and then it flattens out and you slam onto the bridge deck.
Right, yeah.
And you can see where like tractor trailers have actually bottomed out into that bridge deck. Last year they painted it, they did a bunch of rehab work on it. So they're like, and here's the reality with bridges in New York. There's a very limited pool of money and we're all fighting for it. We're all fighting for that same dollar. And no one's gonna invest money into a bridge that's not failing structurally.
Is that one where some signage though might help a little bit if they were telling the general public?
From what they've told me is nothing. And they've even tried to cut that slope back and it hasn't worked. They just haven't.
Okay. Thanks.
Anything else?
You made the most of that 3 minutes.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Tim. It was very helpful.
Appreciate it.
You realize the police have beat you here today.
It does remind me of the joke about the 2 developers who were working in for some small foreign country. And the one developer was saying, this is great. We've got 100 people out here with shovels digging this ditch. It's going to go great. And the other developer said, I can't believe there isn't somewhere in this country an excavator. And the first developer said, well, there are plenty of excavators, but we're providing jobs for all these people. And so the other guy said, well, why don't we use spoons? Why are we using shovels?
Yeah. Exactly.
40 minutes. All right, we'll move on to dockets.
The first docket is introductory law, local law number 6-2022, a local law amending Lewis County local law number 9-2006, a local law providing for the administration and enforcement of the Uniform Fire Prevention and Building Code, and setting the public hearing for December 6th, 2022 at 5:00 p.m.
Any discussion?
I assume this is just updating to
Yes, we're
the
staying.
New York State codes or whatever. Sorry.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. Motion carries.
Authorizing renewal agreements between Lewis County District Attorney's Office and coroner and providers for services.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say nay. Motion carries.
Authorizing purchase of approximately 31 miles of railroad corridor property inclusive of all tracks, other track equipment, buildings and improvements thereon from Genesee Valley Transportation Company for a payment of $2.5 million in accordance with the outline set forth in the memorandum of understanding reached by the parties at mediation on October 11th, 2022.
Any discussion? Go
Why
ahead.
did you look at me?
You looked at me. You want to start?
I have no problem buying the tracks. Where the rubber hits the road, so to speak, is what we do after. And I applauded when we wanted to do the survey to really understand what is there. And that will help to determine what could be there. But I think we need to take everything and everyone in consideration with each particular section of what we do. And I just wanted to say that I'm sure there's going to be within the board pretty spirited discussions about what to do with each section, but that's okay. That's why there's boards and Chevys.
And of course, everybody here knows procedurally, we're voting today whether to give this a positive or negative recommendation from this committee. There will be another vote with the full board, a chance for the public to again give comments, and any comments the public wants to submit during this time, they can certainly do so to any of the legislators or to the clerk of the board to add comments to the record. I wanted to ask just a couple of questions, some of the things that were raised today. Joan, could you address, because I know this has been brought up a few times, the reversionary rights in some of those old deeds and what our council told us?
So, actually, I've started examining most of the deeds, along those lines. I haven't found any reversionary rights. There are some easement rights for certain, property owners with the right to cross over, the rail line property, which is approximately 60 feet. So I haven't seen any reversionary interest in any of the deeds, and I've examined probably about 100 of them so far.
And my understanding was this had more to do with those landowners from many years ago when they first did the eminent domain.
In the southern, south of Loudville.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not on the two lines that we're looking at? Okay. Anything else, any other people want to comment on?
I got a couple of things
Please.
We've heard some pretty disparaging things for rails to trails. But there are rails to trails from the Maine and Canada border to the Georgia-Florida line. And if all the horror stories are there, I really got questions of why would there be rail trails that length of distance. Secondly, the rail company, the GBT has said they're willing to sell them. If private industry gets those rails, you won't have us to come to beat up and negatively speak at us, because private industry will be in control of that. We do, and I myself intend to speak with any landowner that would be affected. What GBT did is they did not allow us to have permission to get onto the rails and do the survey that we wanted to do. So our plan is like acquisition first, survey, clear next, and then figure out where the best place to put the lines are. And with 30 miles of track, I gotta believe for biking and jogging and running trails, there's gotta be a place where you can get 3 10-mile tracks without bothering a lot of people. There's places there that rail trail goes and there's nobody around. My goal is not to have a rail trail that's gonna bother somebody. We've offered up some solutions and they've just been shot down, they won't work or anything. So,
What solutions did you offer?
well, some of you folks sitting there came in, one of the problems that you saw was hunting. If that's owned by a private individual, you aren't gonna get the response we gave. The response we gave you was, we will shut it down from around the 1st of October till after Christmas. And for bikes and running, it'll be shut down longer than that because people aren't gonna bike and run. In the wintertime, it would be like cross-country ski, to supplement what's already been told that's in Dadville. But that's a small trail, I've used it myself, and it gets monotonous very quickly. The next thing is schools. Your river already had one person killed running cross-country. They've approached us, they would like to be able to use some of the off-road trails that we've got for the safety of the students. As many in here know, my wife and I are bikers. She's lucky to be alive, I'm lucky to have her today, because somebody was working on a cell phone and hit her. We had a lady on East State Street riding the bike, gentleman of senior age. I don't think he even knew he hit her, but he dragged her about 2 blocks, could have killed her. So if I can provide a safe place to recreate without causing any really serious irreparable damage to landowners that own alongside the track, I feel it's in my best interest to do it. We had the Railway Society Museum from Krogan, and folks sat here and listened to them. They would like to run their train from Krogan to Loudoun. That's probably a $25 million fix to get that to run to Loudoun. We've had Mr. Trottier in here for 5 years that I've been on this board, and we've asked him to make a business plan that would make using that trail for that viable. We've had 7 years now, and he hasn't made one. So the only way they'd ever get that is if we as a municipality can apply for federal grant money. And I just assume bring some federal grant money and jobs into Lewis County as I would to someplace else. And if we can help them get that, to me, it will be a positive. Thank you.
But there was a young man that was across the trestle on our property, was killed because he fell off and
With a
drowned.
bicycle,
Bicycle.
Yeah.
That's right.
that's because they haven't done, GVT has not really tried to make that as safe a place as it can be. We had one just recently where a young man got out on the trestle here in town.
It wasn't a
Jump.
bike trail at GBP.
Pardon?
So he was on there and, you know, I find it very hard that you're going to rehab, you know, when you have 20-foot embankments and stuff.
I don't have to reach that 20-foot embankments. I'm telling you, in that kind of mileage of track, there's gotta be places where you can put them without it. The fact that homeless are gonna go down there and use it, that thing has been disbanded for 30 years. How many times have homeless been in there? I know of none. You know, I mean, some of those things, drug deals, there'll be drug deals down there. Well, I'm not a druggie, but if I was, with that track being as it is in the day, that's where I go make my drug deals. But if that track was cleaned up, and it was a jogging, biking, running trail, and people were gonna see what I'm doing, I probably wouldn't go down there to make my drug deal. I'd probably make them right here where they're doing it now. So, you know, there's a lot of
We'll wait to
goods
see.
too. Pardon?
We'll wait to see.
Well, I've biked on a couple 100 miles of trails in the country right now, and the trash issue, I've never seen it. We've got one from Boonville to Forestport, along the canal, where they're biking and jogging. I've never seen trash on there. I've stopped and asked every landowner that backs up to that trail, do you have any trouble with the people using this trail? I've had nobody tell me they had any trouble ever using that trail. The bikers and the joggers are there for that.
It's millions of dollars that you're gonna be spending is what is taxpayer.
The millions of dollars that we're gonna be spending will come from federal grants.
taxpayers that want it, so
It'll come from federal grants.
there's taxpayers that don't. Let's
So there's taxpayers, grants are taxpayer money. We all know that. COVID money is taxpayer money. County employees working on the rails is taxpayer money. It's not, just quit saying that it's not gonna cost taxpayers any money because it is. And that's just it. You guys make your decision. You're 10 guys in a room. You never disagree, so
We
you
got a
make your
couple of women.
decisions.
Joanne, as well.
You will.
So I say we have a couple of women on the
You weren't
board.
allowed on the
We're not
property.
10 men in the room.
Mr.
Folks,
Chairman,
I'm
can I
gonna-
just ask you
yeah.
to take control?
I'm gonna move us along here. There will be a chance at the next meeting for comments from the public, and I do appreciate
And
it.
when you have big comments like this,
I wanna,
you
I
don't get
wanna,
to interact with the legislators and find out.
I'm gonna
where they're
address a
coming
couple
from.
of the bullet points that I wrote down when Mr. Picola was speaking. Money spent on broadband, we've invested millions of dollars, some of it of our own money, some of it of money from other sources in broadband. This is one part of a multi-tier effort for us to try to modernize Lewis County, to make Lewis County attractive to the next generation of families. This is not the silver bullet. This is one piece of, like I said, of a multi-tiered approach. We've spent a lot of money on broadband. We realize the importance of it. We've spent a lot of money on infrastructure. This has been an important year for us as a county. We are addressing projects which I think should have been started in some cases decades ago. And I'm really proud of the work that this committee has done and of our board in making progress on a lot of those projects. I do want to say, I don't think that we should diminish all of the concerns that have been raised by the public. I think that there are a lot of legitimate issues that need to be grappled with. Trespass is a problem. Speeding on ATV trails and snowmobile trails is a problem. I think, we talked a little bit about at the public hearing, liability issues for landowners. That's a serious issue. We talked about how they can provide a measure of liability protection by putting up signs. And this is just as a discussion point for us as a board, the possibility that the county help furnish the cost of signs. And we help them locate where those signs should go to help provide the best liability protection and make sure landowners are staying on their property. I think that it might be smart of us to consider a moratorium on ATV use for some sections of this trail or for all of it, certainly while we're working on development and while we're also sorting out some of the issues that we have with patrol. That's something for us to consider. And then also, if we make this purchase and as this process unfolds, we need to have a clear process for determining the best possible use of each section. I don't think it should necessarily just be whoever calls or whoever happens to email who's friends with who. I'd like to see us have meetings with the town and village board members. I'd like us to bring in stakeholders like the Railway Museum, bring in the sheriff, bring in anybody who's going to be directly impacted, and yes, bring in the landowners as well. Let's have these conversations, and let's keep the ball rolling. I did want to just wrap up my little bit here. A few weeks ago, I went up to Saranac Lake, and I mentioned this to a few of you, on a converted narrow gauge railway bed up north of Saranac Lake. I went on it with my kids, who are ages 1 through 14, and with my parents. We don't have anything quite like this. We do have recreation opportunities in Lewis County. There's plenty of great hiking around. I've hiked quite a lot of it. There's two real nice benefits that this type of trail poses. Number one is it's a nice, flat, narrow, low-grade trail. It provides excellent access for people with disabilities. It provides a lot of really great access for children. My kids could ride their little bikes on the trail, and because you've got a nice straight shot, they can go off 250 yards down the road, turn back. They're not waiting for the slower people to catch up. My father used to be an avid hiker. He's hiked most of the high peaks. He now has peripheral neuropathy. He's 70 years old. It's very difficult for him to do that kind of exercise. Any type of rocky terrain causes a lot of pain for his feet. If it weren't for things like that, where he's located, he would not be able to get out and get exercise. The safety thing was a big thing that Dick raised. When I go out with my kids biking on the roads, on the Arts Road, it's 55-mile-an-hour road. Cars go around that turn 60 miles an hour plus. You wouldn't believe the number of cars that end up in the ditch. I'm at the point now where I just can't even take them out. This is an opportunity, and then the other thing too, why this trail is unique. This is a corridor that will connect several thousand people, all within walking or biking distance of that trail. We're bringing a lot of people potentially out of their homes to get exercise. I see opportunities for us to have, community races, use by the Lowville and Beaver River Schools, which will be connected to this. It goes right onto the Beaver River School property. And I've even heard rumblings that Bob was considering maybe getting a cross-country team before too long. So I think that yes, with any type of project that's ever been worth doing has entailed an element of risk and uncertainty, but that's the American story. We take those risks into account, we live with the decisions that we make, and we be smart about it, we get input, but ultimately, we don't make decisions solely based on fear or favor, but what we think is best for the community. So that's all I have. Any other comments from committee members?
All set.
Can I get a legislator to make that motion? Should I do it? Second.
It's just all those in
Oh, I'm sorry. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed say nay. Motion carries.
appropriating the 2022 and 2023 snowmobile award in the amount of $129,451.20.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Motion carries.
Amending tip fee schedule of Lewis County Solid Waste Department by increasing the direct haul surcharge tipping fee for municipal solid waste from $84 a ton to $90 a ton effective January 1st, 2023.
Any discussion?
This was in part of the, according to what something that Dank did as far as raising theirs.
Yeah.
I'd just like to point out that Dank has done that, but they also helped us at the transfer station up there considerably. We were at their meeting, so it's a sign of the times that their costs are going up, so they're not just saying, oh, we want to raise it for that to raise it.
They've gone up about 14% over the last 2 years. We're only proposing to go up 7%. So we still are taking a hit in terms of, our accounting on that, right? So, it was at par 2 years ago, but we think we've got enough volume coming through, we can make it work.
You think part of that's because of the work that we've done on the facility improvements, or does that not come into play with this?
I think volume has more to do with the economy and, the fact that people did a ton of C&D during, the pandemic. People were home doing home projects. And part of inflation is people are still buying a lot, demand is high, and so there's a lot of garbage coming in still, so.
Any other discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Motion carries.
Authorizing intermunicipal agreement between the County of Lewis and the Village of Krogan to administer land use and zoning regulations from January 1st, 2023 through December 31st, 2023. This docket and the next one are the late ones that were put on for us.
Same thing we've done with the other ones, so. Just now,
I think it is worth noting though, that every time we add, which we really don't have a choice, if they opt out, we have to take them, but, we don't, the codes department doesn't break even other than years where we have a federal project or something where we collect a lot of permit fees. So the towns, we're hearing a little bit of griping from the towns at the moment about sales tax. These are the types of things that cost the county money that they're getting for free. They would have to run these. So.
Any discussion? On the Croydon one, yeah. All in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. Motion carries.
Authorizing no-cost change order numbers 5 and 6 to the agreement with Betty and Kring for the highway garage and DSS building renovations under the facilities improvement projects for a revised cost of $37,531 and $44,285 respectively, reducing the allowance amount set forth in the contract.
Did you want to comment on that?
Yes, so the highway garage foundation, they go through a process of shop drawings where they check all, basically the design of the building and tie it all together. And through that process, foundations had to get larger. that is that price there. And the DSS building, when they demoed, existing conditions were different than they were on the drawings. They reinforced all the steel up top to hold the new roof that went on above, so that was, that's that price there.
And can I just, and it's also true that this is part of their allowance in the contract, it's not additional monies that we're paying out?
Yeah, each of the prime contractors have a contingency allowance within their bid. And whenever that funds are used, we issue a no-cost change order as money dispersed to the contractor. So it doesn't increase their contract, that's why it's a no-cost change order, but it's taken out of their allowance. Betting Green initially had $250,000 because we knew we run into change orders. So we bake a certain percentage into their contract and they're not allowed to over 10 profit on it. Theoretically, they included that in the bid. So as we run into the changes, we issue it as a no-cost change order, reducing the allowance.
Any other discussion?
As Jim, as you very well know, I don't concur with giving CNS extra money because they should have caught it in the first place. But I'll go with the majority, but that is,
I think those are two different topics. The contractor ran into the work. This is work he's performing.
it says whereas CNS did a change order for
Yeah.
37,000.
They'll issue the change order to the contractor.
Okay,
Okay,
we're not giving money to CNS then.
No,
Okay,
no, they issue the change order to the contractor. The contractor signs it. The architect signs it, we sign it, and then the county signs it last, once it's vetted through that process.
okay, that makes me feel
Phil,
better, I
there,
appreciate it.
so Phil, what Phil's talking about is we have a request on the table, which we're gonna bring through, that, the committee that's really been more focused on the details of the project. Since we ran into the issues with the Department of Transportation and having to really extend the amount of design work on that entrance off of 812, CNS was asking for additional funds for that. But that's not being addressed today.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All in favor, say aye.
You agree with me? Oh,
Those opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Thanks, guys.
I was nervous that he
We don't have any motions.
Nope, that's all I have.
Did we want to go into executive session today?
I don't think, I'm not aware that we need to.
Larry, did we need to?
We'll do that after. You mentioned that.
We did a discussion that
Let's
you and
chat during the break, see if we
Yeah.
need it.
If there's any new business, Deb, did you want to raise something?
Yeah, I can't believe I'm doing it, but I want to, with all the discussions we've had, and we bantered back and forth with the sheriff about getting trail. We spent, I think, 100,000 on the folks that we hired, and I don't think we got what we really expected to get from them for various reasons. And I believe a deputy would be about 100,000. So we would have, if we hired 2 more deputies, what I'd like is a committee get together and look at this. I'm bringing it up a little cold. But if we could get 2 deputies, 100% dedicated to that, I think we'd have a chance at better protection because they're part of Lewis County and they understand us and stuff. So I'm not proposing we do it, I'm proposing we put together a subcommittee to work with Ryan and Caitlin and see what that figure would look like for that.
we can certainly put an ad hoc committee together to do that. But historically, in that one recent meeting, the sheriff indicated that they had three men going to the academy. It dropped down to 2 of them backed out for various reasons, so they only had one person going through the academy. So his point is that people just aren't looking for this job, and, you know, in the light of the undermining the police today, I suppose, we can certainly look at it, but as you know, the problem we've always had in the past is if we hire, I think this board would be more than willing to hire 2 additional people for the sheriff's department if we would be guaranteed that they would end up on trail patrol.
That's sort of what I'm.
And that's the point that we've never been able to get across. We're promised lots of things and nothing comes to fruition. We can certainly look at it again. As far as trail enforcement on the trails, we all recognize that it's a big issue and we all like to do something about it. So what you're suggesting makes sense.
I agree with that. No, I think it would be something good for us to consider. And obviously the hiring issue, finding the people who are willing to serve in those roles, that's important too. But I agree with that. And I understand, you know, the sheriff's desire, at least that he's expressed, is to have more officers on the road. The reality is with any type of community, you're gonna hit a certain point with your crime rate where adding more police officers to particular areas isn't going to make a difference. If it would, I'd be interested to see the data. I'd like to know how many tickets are issued, how many arrests are made, what kind of difference adding another officer is going to make. I do know, based on the information that I've heard, we don't issue nearly as many tickets on the trails than what we used to do.
That's what seems to be what we hear from the public, when the snow slip clubs and stuff, yeah.
Right. And again, the goal isn't just to ticket people, you know, it's not like we make money off the tickets. That is a sign of how well the deterrence is working. Is, you know, are we actually out there? Or do people know that if they speed on a particular section of trail or they're drinking, that there's a high probability they'll be pulled over and that they'll get nailed for it? And hopefully enough people will make the right decisions that they won't put themselves and other people in that sort of situation. That's the discussion we've been having, I think. But I appreciate you bringing that up. Any other new business?
While we're on that subject, you know, we should be aware that we're probably going to have to pursue another security agency to help out with snowmobile trails this winter, because the schools now command 100% of the time that the SROs, of their SROs time, where previously they only had, I think, 80%, some number. We had the rest. We no longer have that, and so we're gonna have to cover that somehow.
Are they gonna be, I mean, they're gonna be reporting for the holidays though, for Christmas?
They'll be reporting over Christmas vacation if there is snow. They had that week off in February. Last year, they tried to do trail patrol then, and I think it rained all that week. The plus side of it is that in the wintertime, not only the sheriff's department patrols the trails, but the state police, Parks and Rec, State Parks and Rec, and also DEC patrol snowmobile trails in winter. So there's a little help there, a little enforcement, actual enforcement coverage that we don't have with respect to the ATV season. But we're still in a deficit when it comes to bona fide trail enforcement, and we'll have to somehow cover the best we can.
There's no other business. Can I get a motion to adjourn? Made by Dick, second by Phil. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. Motion carries. The meeting's adjourned.
the October 18th, 2022 Health and Human Service Committee minutes, if I could get a second.
Second.
Thanks, Dick. And then Ryan wanted to point out,
So last week, we got the privilege to celebrate our emergency management director, Bob McKenzie, who was awarded the Lewis County Health Hero Award. There's one from each county in the Tri-County area that's recognized by the Fort Worth Regional Health Planning Organization. And so Bob had a little cartoon superhero that was made in his likeness that I thought was pretty funny.
That's great.
And, oh, great, now this thing's not working. And so I thought that was pretty funny.
You make it have a bunch of those made up like little dolls.
Bobbleheads.
Yep.
So it's your turn.
He's gonna sign it.
Only if I get a call. Hey.
Oh, hi, Bob.
Well, anyway, there's other pictures too, but.
Ryan doesn't know.
This is the best part of the show.
You gotta be careful, you know what happens when I get this.
Here comes a repairman.
And I do it. There's our crew that went to the event. Bob was nominated by Jessica Skiff at the hospital. So we had a good Lewis County crew. I dare say we had the most supportive group from the Tri-County. Well, when it comes to Lewis County, we don't have to be modest. And there's Bob, who usually has typical technology issues with his phone. I don't know what that's supposed to be, but
He's gonna blow up in 5
yeah.
seconds.
So anyway, I thought that was worth sharing. And again, congratulations to Bob. You really, are an amazing public servant, and we're very lucky to have you doing this now.
okay, we have two presentations today. First up, we have Ashley Wade to present on the Community Health Improvement Plan.
Where's Connor? I got it. Sorry. Do I have it?
Thanks.
Hospital Foundation? No, Ashley. No.
Good to go?
Yep.
Okay, so if you'll remember last month, I came and presented on our community health assessment. I provided you with the data regarding these 6 health priorities that we chose to address. This month, I am going to provide you with our plan for addressing these health priorities over the next 3 years. I will tell you that some of these interventions we've been doing for the past 3 years, maybe even 6 years. Some of them are new. A couple of things in regard to what we've been doing the last 3 years. Obviously, COVID took a big chunk of our time and delayed much of our community health improvement work. And the other thing is, a lot of these interventions are long-term interventions. They can take years to fully implement and then even longer to see the effects on our health indicators. Everything that we choose needs to be evidence-based or tied back to an evidence-based practice, and everything is laid out from the state and their community health improvement plan. So first, we will talk about obesity. We're addressing both childhood and adult obesity in these. So there's 2 separate ways you can address obesity when you think about it. Physical activity and nutrition. So the first focus area will be healthy eating and food security. So that's increasing access to healthy foods, and then also increasing knowledge in regard to how to make healthy choices. I'll go into the specifics of each intervention in green on the following slide. So we'll be looking to implement a fruit and vegetable prescription program. So that'll be working with healthcare providers and Jefferson County Cornell Cooperative Extension, who has received a grant to pay for fresh produce. So you go to your doctor, they identify you as somebody who has limited access to fruits and vegetables, and they can write a prescription for those fruits and vegetables. You can then take that and buy your fresh produce, and the grant through Jefferson County Cornell Cooperative Extension will pay for that for those individuals. They will not only pay for it, they'll also provide education in regard to how to prepare those fresh fruits and vegetables, why this is a healthier option, and why stopping and getting an energy drink isn't a healthy option. So that's number one in regard to increasing access to healthy food. Number two is we'd like to work with our Office for Aging to experiment with a rebranding, maybe new location, new concept in regard to the congregate meal sites, home delivered meals, and evening meals. So we know that the benefits of them coming together in a congregate site is obviously social, but it's also a very nutritious meal. And having that opportunity will increase access to healthy food options. So having more of our seniors take advantage of these programs will help us to reduce our obesity rates. The third here is Eat Well, Play Hard. This is a nutrition and physical activity program targeted at preschool age children. So it's an educational curriculum. So we teach not only the child about healthy food and physical activity and the benefits of it and how to do that, but also the parents, the either preschools or daycares that would implement this, also engage in this culture, the teachers learn. So as of right now, we are going to be working with Head Start, who has secured a grant through Oneida County Cornell Cooperative Extension, and has started the steps in implementing this. Any questions on those? So the second focus area is physical activity. And I'll go over the three interventions here, but the goal is to make the active choice the most, the easiest choice for somebody to make, and the most attractive choice for them to make. So what we'll be working on is complete streets. We have been working on this. Like I said, COVID kind of delayed our work. We've been partnering with planning and the highway department. And the planning department has actually applied for money to help us implement this countywide. So over the next 3 years, we're hoping to have an official plan and also some implementation funds for our municipalities that have gone through the steps of doing the walkability study and identifying areas in which they would like to put some funds towards to improve the walkability, bikeability of their community. The second is the comprehensive school physical activity program. Again, we have been working on this. Beaver River School District has had some success in doing a self-assessment. Laval Academy has began steps towards this. Again, it's a long-term implementation process. So this program here is going to ensure that every child in school gets 60 minutes of physical activity every day. So that's just making sure maybe when they're sitting in class that they, okay, everybody get up and, walk around the classroom, or there's a bunch of different ways that it can be implemented, but we will continue to work on this. And then park-based physical activity, that is actually something that's new. So this is working with parks to identify maybe accessibility issues, maybe things in their park that are broken, ways that they can make their park more attractive, playgrounds. So this is working with each municipality to help them to identify the issues. Once issues are identified, helping them to secure funding to improve their parks, and we will continue to promote parks within the county on our Naturally Healthy app.
Yes,
Yes,
are some of that slide part of the DRI application that we've got in this safe streets and stuff?
the complete streets, I don't, was that part of the
Yes,
DRI?
for the level DRI and also the Lions Falls, what's that smaller grant called?
Main streets.
Main Street, yeah, something like that.
Oh, restoring.
Restoring, yes.
So you may be able to get some help from that.
Another good example of the complete streets is, we're scheduled to redo, the main street in Glenfield. That's one of the, streets that Tim has identified as needing some attention. If we use CDBG funds, since Glenfield is a low to moderate income, we can go beyond paving and also do sidewalks and some other street improvements. There's no sidewalks in Glenfield. So, you know, those are the types of investments we're talking about. Don't just pave, try to pave in a way that, you know, it's not just a car-centric environment, it's a pedestrian and bicycle environment as well.
I have seen quite a few individuals that are working at the Glenfield school walking around Glenfield on their lunch break. So maybe taking some of their advice in regard to what the best route would be.
Thank you.
Okay, smoking. Obviously, we'll be working on promoting tobacco use cessation. We will be promoting the New York Smokers Quit line, which is free, confidential, and they have a host of evidence-based treatment programs that they can offer. The other thing with this is increasing awareness that a lot of insurance covers tobacco use cessation. And a lot of people probably don't know that. So NERCL has a community health worker that is just starting, that is available to go out into the community and do any kind of community health education that we see fit. Promoting what is covered by one's insurance in general for prevention efforts is something that I see this person doing. I think a lot of people don't understand what exactly is covered by their insurance, and they could be receiving a lot of health benefits if they would take full advantage of it.
Ashley,
Yes.
I know that DSS and probation and a couple of other departments, we've been with the SROs actually on some Zooms about the really increased use of vaping by students. Is there anything that public health can do in terms of education to the schools on trying to get these kids off the vaping?
So Mountain View does currently do that kind of educational programming. It's something I don't like to duplicate efforts. And this here was specifically addressing adult cigarette smoking. Because that was the data that we had, but I do agree something needs to be done in regard to the vaping.
Well, Mountain View is,
Yes.
they were on that.
Yeah. Okay, the next is preventing chronic disease. So this is screening for chronic disease, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, high blood pressure, and referring patients to our evidence-based programs. So the evidence-based programs that we have, Public Health does a DSMP program. We partner with OFA and NERCL and Double Play for CDSMP, Walk With Ease, Tai Chi, and then we also provide diabetes prevention program. So we've been doing these for many years now, and we've had really good success. Our diabetes prevention program is recognized by the CDC. And we're actually working on being able to bill insurance for that in the very near future. Healthy Together is going to be a new evidence-based program. It is a family-based program in which we will provide education to children between the ages of 7 and 13 and their entire family. It's a weight management and healthy living program. Our pediatricians have actually asked specifically for something like our DPP program to address childhood obesity. So this is an evidence-based program that the CDC promotes and we will be implementing over the
Like
next
a
2 years.
doctor, like a pediatrician could refer.
Yes,
And
yes. And Dr. Palmer has a list ready. Okay, any questions on that? Suicide and binge drinking. So there will be another slide specifically on suicide, but one of the ways to address suicide is to promote well-being, promoting a supporting environment that promotes respect and dignity for people of all ages, and then preventing underage drinking and excessive alcohol consumption in adults. So the specific interventions, we'll be looking to implement teen mental health first aid. So I don't know if you guys have seen around the county, we've offered youth mental health first aid and adult mental health first aid. So teen mental health first aid will target the 10 teens in grades 10 to 12 and help them, give them the tools to help friends when they see them struggling, so that they can have those hard conversations because they're not easy to have. The other is sources of strength. We have some schools that are starting to implement this, so we'd like to see that across the county and maybe even expanded down into elementary right through until they're a senior. And again, this is making kids more aware of mental health issues and building coping skills. And then for binge drinking, it would be working with our providers to make sure that alcohol use screenings are being done, and if they do identify an issue, that we're referring to CRADO when it's appropriate. And the other focus area for suicide is actually preventing suicides. I'll go over each one of those interventions. Getting ahead, this is really a program, I don't know if you are all familiar with it, it's part of Bridges Out of Poverty. So the Getting Ahead is actually for those individuals living in poverty, giving them the resources that they need to work their way out of living in poverty, so that they are stable. Second here is zero suicide and zero overdose. CRADO and TLS are currently working to implement these initiatives, and this is really so no one falls through the cracks. So somebody that's at risk for suicide or at risk for overdose would be identified, and then these individuals would have a warm handoff to somebody that could address the concerns that they have. Lock and Talk is a means reduction program. Suicide hotspot interventions, again, it's a means reduction. So we could assess where suicides are happening. If there's a spot in the county where it happens frequently, or there's a trend in regard to how the suicide is actually taking place, we would look to address that. One of the examples that they give is if there's a bridge, putting signage up the bridge, putting barricades up if it's a place where people are not supposed to have access to. The next is gatekeeper training. So we've been providing these trainings for quite a few years now. We will continue to provide these trainings. Again, it's empowering individuals to identify when someone's struggling and have that tough conversation and know where they can point them. if they see an individual is at risk for suicide or just struggling. And the post-vention team, which is our traumatic loss team, we're looking to transition that from, right now, it's required that a referral is made, and that the individuals that are affected actually ask for help. With an active post-vention response, they are called as soon as the traumatic loss happens, and they go and respond. It's just part of the response. Any questions on any of that? And then last, we identified falls resulting in hospitalization were increasing throughout the county. One of the interventions we identified to reduce this is to implement Young at Heart. It is an educational class designed to increase physical activity, reduce sedentary behavior, increase balance, and so we'd be looking to partner with Office for the Aging and/or Double Play to implement that. And then this is just a graph of all of the interventions we would be doing to address each one of the health indicators that we identified as a concern. So this plan is due to the state by the end of the year. The reason I am presenting to you all is so that you have an opportunity to digest this. If there's something that you say, well, this is never going to work in Lewis County, why are we even thinking about it? Please provide that feedback. If there's something else that you feel should be included but isn't, feel free to tell me that too. I would just tell you that anything that we do needs to ultimately flow into what the state has for their community health improvement plan. It needs to have some evidence behind it that it actually will improve health indicators.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Ashley? One more thing. Get your work cut out for you, huh? Yeah. Thank you. Next, we have Joanne Rubart from the Lewis County Hospital Foundation to give a presentation. Hi, everyone. Okay.
Thank you for this opportunity to come today and talk to you about the foundation and let you know a little bit about what we do. I think you'll be surprised. So we're calling the capital campaign for the hospital construction project, Honoring the Legacy, Building the Future. I wanted to share a little bit about what the foundation's mission is, in case anyone was confused, that we are a separate 501c3 organization supporting the hospital. But our mission is to enrich and enhance the hospital's high-quality healthcare services, build strong relationships, and of course, raise money to invest in the future of the hospital. Sorry. A little bit about the foundation. It was formed in 2001 as the official fundraising organization of the hospital. What that means is every donation that comes to the hospital runs through the foundation, whether it's unrestricted, meaning it can be used however we see fit, or restricted to a certain area or department. And we're a 501c3 charitable organization that gives us the ability to accept those donations. Just a little fun fact that as I did my research, Lewis County government gave $100,000 to start the foundation. I wanted to share with you a little bit about some of the things we've done to support the hospital through the foundation. So in 2014, we wrote a debt reduction grant and we were awarded $6.5 million. This past year, we were awarded $1 million in a USDA Rural Development Grant to offset the losses during COVID. That was the maximum you could apply for. In January of 22, we submitted a $9 million grant to New York State Department of Health for the capital project. They have not been awarded yet. I'm going to cross my fingers and hope we get something. Just another thing that we did is we raised money to provide $150,000 to support the purchase of the automated breast ultrasound machine for the radiology department. And at that time, it was the only machine in the Tri-County area. During COVID, we funded $65,000 to provide a rapid testing machine. We got some support from the McSweeney Foundation and one of the windmill companies. From some of our galas in the past, we purchased safe patient handling equipment, new furniture for the nursing home elevator lobbies. Last year, we provided some funding for the stroke readiness program, and we were a part of the funding of the new helicopter landing zone. So this is our budget for the capital project, and as you can see, we have included $250,000 to build an endowment. We have a very small one at the Northern Area Community Foundation right now, and we've estimated the cost to do this campaign at $150,000. That includes a capital campaign advisor, signage, everything you could think of that would be part of that, materials that we purchased. We actually have created a fundraising video that I'm going to show you in just a second, all of those things. So through my consulting company, we are following this timeline. And right now we are in the quiet phase. That's why you're not hearing anything about this publicly. We are working to get funding from foundations and organizations and some larger donors. We probably won't go public with this campaign until we're at least 1.6 million. So here's what we have today. We have received some donations in the past, and we have restricted them over the last couple of years to support the capital project. So we've restricted $202,695. The Northern New York Community Foundation has committed $175,000. The McSweeney Foundation has committed $150,000. We received an unsolicited private gift of $100,000. And secured an additional smaller things. The auxiliary gave $50,000 and many other organizations, $158,550. Right now, I've got about $400 in requests in process. We're going to the regional offices of the Kinney Foundation in January. I've requested at least $200,000 there. A $100,000 grant from National Grid, the Project C grant, and I will be applying for that in January. That's got a window of opportunity, so they requested that I apply, and that's $100,000. So what I'm asking today is that you consider a gift to the Honoring the Legacy Building the Future campaign to support this project by assisting us with the endowment fund at $250,000 and the capital campaign fundraising cost at $150,000. Questions? Comments?
So can you speak more to that endowment fund, or what you would use that to do?
The endowment fund would go right to the Northern New York Community Foundation, and then the hospital would be able to use the interest on that every year. And that would be in perpetuity. You know, you would never touch the principal amount of that money, and it would just keep growing, and they are great stewards. That's where the foundation keeps our money at this time, and they're great stewards of our money. $150,000, as I said, was the campaign cost, which is like our consulting. We have a part-time person that's helping us, all the materials, the video, just everything we could think of that would be part of the campaign. At the end of it, it would be the donor wall, it would be the naming plaques, it would be everything right down to the day we open. That would be the responsibility of the foundation, not the hospital.
Who did you say the steward was for the endowment fund?
The Northern New York Community Foundation, yes. That's where the foundation has, we have our funds there as well right now. Questions?
Do you have a video?
I do. We have created a campaign video. I showed it for the first time on Saturday night at our fundraising gala, our biggest event of the year. I'm not sharing it publicly yet. It will, obviously it'll be public, but, yeah, right. Obviously it will be. I mean, I'm going to use it with small groups of individuals. it's 5 minutes long, so it can't be a commercial or anything like that, but take a look at it and let me know what you think.
Who'd you send it to?
What's that?
Who'd you send the video to?
Cassandra?
I forwarded it to Concom.
I have it on a pen drive if you can't get it.
Lewis County General Hospital is a vital community asset that provides quality healthcare services for the 26,000 residents of Lewis County.
Lewis County General Hospital has been open for 90 years. It has serviced numerous generations of Lewis County residents.
Lewis County Health System is one of the most important employers, certainly in Lewis County, but also in terms of serving our community.
In smaller communities and smaller hospitals, one of the things that we can do better than anyone else is taking care of our own community members.
We've lived here nearly 30 years, and we've had occasion to make a few trips to the emergency room. And each time it's been the utmost professional care and quality health care.
The hospital is such an important part of the community. We felt the things that we could do to help keep it going and making sure that it was ready for the next 50 or 60 years was extremely important.
In the midst of the Great Depression, the residents of Lewis County understood the importance of a local hospital for our rural community and worked together to make their dream a reality. With a $100,000 bond and many donations from the community, the $220,000 hospital opened its doors on August 4th, 1931, and has been providing quality health care for the people of Lewis County and the surrounding local communities for the past 91 years.
The history of this institution is that the community came together during a very difficult time. The community came together and moved this project forward because they knew how important it was.
Throughout the country, what we're seeing is this mass closure of rural hospitals, rural health systems. There is nothing guaranteed by any government entity that there will be local access to health care. We're fortunate, we live in a county where both the Board of Legislators and the Board of Managers and the employees of our health system have made a commitment to our community.
Lewis County General Hospital has not conducted a capital project since 2007.
We have not improved our physical facility in decades. This will be the first opportunity we've had in over 40 years to improve our surgical wing.
The capital project will construct a 26,262 square foot state-of-the-art surgical pavilion that will include 3 operating rooms and 1 procedure room, doubling the current surgical capacity. The project will renovate and modernize our current medical surgical wing to create 24 private rooms with private baths to ensure patient safety and satisfaction and enhance infection prevention measures.
We believe for the future of Lewis County, the Lewis County General Hospital really needs the community to step in and support this in a very instrumental way. And the development and growth of the county really hinges on the importance of having a strong hospital behind it.
I want to make sure that the next generation has really a state-of-the-art facility that they can be proud of and that takes care of our community. We're all interconnected. And in a small place, 1 or 2 people can make a huge difference.
The capital project will be the most comprehensive modernization of Lewis County General Hospital in its 91-year history.
This is an important project. This is an important capital campaign because it really sets our stage for being able to make sure healthcare services are available for our community, not only today, but tomorrow and for years to come. This is an investment. It's an investment in us. It's an investment in our area, the people who live here. It's absolutely vital for the quality of life that we have come to expect and want it for the next generation.
It is our hope that when you look at this project and make a decision to donate, that you make a gift that you feel is appropriate for your financial situation and that of the communities.
This has always been a community in our experience of neighbor helping neighbor, and our children graduated from here. It's an opportunity for us to give back and the community to give back to Lewis County.
We hope other folks in the community, citizens of all ages, will look at this as a priority and an opportunity to help even beyond this project. Look at the hospital as a really important institution in our community.
We invite you to honor the legacy and build the future of Lewis County General Hospital with a charitable gift to the Lewis County Hospital Foundation. Your contribution will help to provide a transformational change to the medical and surgical services at Lewis County General Hospital to meet the current and future healthcare needs of our community for generations to come. Honoring the legacy, building the future.
Awesome, that's great. What do you think?
Very nice. I just want to finish up with saying that, I am honored to be part of this project, and as a not-for-profit, there are so many great ones in this community, but there isn't another one that 100% of its mission is to support this hospital. So we would really appreciate your support for the project.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay, and let's move on to dockets, please, Sandra.
The first one is authorizing agreement between Lewis County Office for the Aging and Lewis County Opportunities to serve as administrator of the Aging in Place Modification Program allocation from January 1st, 2023 through December 31st, 2023.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Carries.
Authorizing agreement between Office for the Aging and Mary Lou Plant, registered dietitian, to provide oversight for the nutrition program at an hourly rate of $50 up to 16 hours a week from January 1st, 2023 through December 31st, 2023.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Carries.
Authorizing renewal agreements between Lewis County Public Health Agency and various providers for program services.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. Carries.
Authorizing renewal agreement between both the Lewis County Public Health Department and Lewis County Department of Social Services with Lewis County General Hospital for medical director services from January 1st, 2023 through December 31st, 2024 at a cost not to exceed $12,000 per year.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Carries.
Authorizing agreement between the County of Lewis on behalf of Lewis County Human Resources and Social Services Department and Lee Vance for employee assistance professional services from January 1st, 2023 through December 31st, 2023 at an hourly rate of $175 up to the not to exceed amount of $10,000 per department.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Carries.
Authorizing agreements between Lewis County Department of Social Services and the County Law Department for legal services and representation in family court matters, child support enforcement proceedings, and purchase of services for collection and recovery matters for the term of January 1st, 2023 through December 31st, 2023, in an amount not to exceed $174,127 for legal representation on neglect, abuse, foster care, JDs, and related family court matters, $77,954 for child support enforcement legal representation services, and $36,588 for the purchase of services for collection and recoveries.
Any discussion?
Beginning of one.
Yeah.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Carries.
Authorizing renewal agreements between Lewis County Department of Social Services and various providers for program and operating services from January 1st, 2023 through December 31st, 2023.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. Carries.
awarding bid and authorizing agreement with Dymo Architecture, Engineering, and Land Surveying for temporary and permanent housing feasibility and budget estimates on 3 potential sites.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed, nay. Carries.
I don't have any motions.
And I don't have anything else this time, so I'll take a motion to adjourn. Andrea, second by Dick. Thank you.
Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. First off, a motion to approve the minutes of the previous meeting. Thank you. That was Jeff and Josh.
Got it.
By the way, you do a really good job on these minutes. Keeping track of everything that Joan says particularly.
She keeps track of everything we say and how much we spend.
While they do that, Miranda's over there watching the whole thing on the computer.
Good. So we got a couple of presentations, and starting with this other,
And Cheyenne.
and Cheyenne, sorry.
That's okay. My clicker working? Oh, it's- So the Glenfield Elementary School, as you know, we've been coordinating with Naturally Lewis on finding the best use for this building. And I'm going to take you through some of the history of the project and things that we've done, since 2019. And then I'm going to hand it over to Cheyenne to kind of walk you through what we have proposed for the next steps. So I will review the history and timeline of this project, the market analysis and findings that we worked through with New York State Main Street Technical Assistance Funding, and then the next steps for future redevelopment. So the historical timeline. This has certainly been a process, to say the least, but we were trying to be extremely proactive starting back in 2019 when we were first informed of the potential decommissioning of the schools. So this history that I'm going to provide not only covers Glenfield, but it also covers the Fort Leyden Elementary School that we wanted to also focus on the redevelopment and reuse for. So back in 2019, February, we were brought together actually by the Tocqueville Commission, who involved all of the stakeholders, and I'll go through that in the next slide, to really come together to formulate, what are we going to do with these two school buildings kind of strategy going forward. So moving into July 2019, my office and Tocqueville Commission coordinated efforts to apply for CDBG funding to complete a reuse study. Unfortunately, we were not awarded that particular grant. And then in 2020, we reconvened, strategized, and knew that we wanted to move forward with a community survey to figure out what the community wanted to use those two buildings for. So we went forward with that in October of 2020. That was really led by the Tocqueville Commission and South Louis Central School District. And then in January of 2021, we had an opportunity that New York Main Street funding became available. Typically, that's available during the typical CFA round in the late spring, early summer. However, with COVID, that was pushed off. So we had this last minute opportunity to apply for the technical assistance funding with very little strings attached compared to the CDBG funding opportunity pot. And we went full force ahead with that reuse study application. In March, we were awarded that funding, and we, as you know, we contracted with the MRD group, and the history is there. Unfortunately, there was quite a bit of overlap after that March 2021 award date, where South Louis Central School District was already kind of moving forward with their RFP for the school, and they put that out to see, you know, what developers would be interested in purchasing the school, and then they ended up following through with that and awarding the Glenfield school to Lascombe Institute of IT. And so that deal was closed in fall of 2021, actually conveniently, or ironically enough, I should say, around the same time that we concluded our Glenfield Elementary review study. So in the spring of 2022, the Board of Legislators had moved forward actually with purchasing the Glenfield Elementary building from
last comp, and the rest is history. So the reuse study, the stakeholders involved were the Tug Hill Commission, our department, Lewis County IDA, South Lewis Central School District, the board members, as well as the municipal officials. We involved them in the process too, because their infrastructure and tax base, obviously, were interested. So the overall goal was to prepare for the decommissioning of the Fort Lyden and Glenfield elementary schools set for September 2021. So the reuse plan results. So as I had said, we were awarded the New York Main Street grant funding and moved forward with hiring the MRB group. They moved at a very quick pace. They had the reuse study and market analysis done within, 4 or 5 months. And the best identified use after public involvement and doing their analytics and research was hospitality. And they found that it was best suited for an economy boutique hotel, meaning, the Holiday Inns of the world and those flag hotels were not appropriate for Lewis County for obvious reasons, right? We need something that's really custom to our rural environment. We don't host the number of conferences. We're not a really big business travel site. So those conferences and whatnot, those are flag hotels specialities, if you will. But Lewis County and the area was best suited for those boutique hotels. So Tailwater Lodge is a really great prime example of that. It's very niche, and it's very focused, but it's very high end. Just because we wouldn't fit the mold or model for a prestigious site for a Holiday Inn. Do we really want Holiday Inn? We really want something that's really fit to our community. So the primary target market for this boutique hotel would be outdoor enthusiasts, fishing, boating, hunting, ATV riding, snowmobile riding. And one of the biggest reasons for that is proximity to all of those things. It's right along the Black River, it's right along the snow sled trails, and it actually is right off of the main road, and that was by far the best use, and actually the public certainly supported that use. Additional studies that back up these are the findings from that reuse plan was the recently completed Lewis County Housing Needs Assessment. We completed that, as you know, earlier this year. That identified that the demand for large single-family homes, mobile homes, are going to decrease, and the renter-occupied households are going to increase. And it's also going to increase the demand for small lot single-family homes. So all in all, we want to look at market rate housing opportunities and served housing opportunities for incomes between $100,000 and $150,000, and then $35,000, $75,000. Something that we are working on with Naturally Lewis is the KinderCare Early Childhood Education Center feasibility study. We've teamed up with the IDA to work with KinderCare and their consultants to evaluate the Glenfield site's newest wing that was built, I believe, in 1995 for retrofitting to a early childhood education center. So that's going to include the center size, the maximum capacity, what the 5-year plan would be for if we had 60% capacity, 75% capacity, what the tuition rates would be, what the talent pool would be, subsidy programs that would be involved, the structures, sustainable structures for subsidy programs, and then funding mechanisms for the project to bring that up to par. Not only are we looking at the Glenfield elementary site, but we're also looking at a brand new site here in Lowville, as close to the hospital as we can possibly get. But for this particular presentation, just knowing that we are working on utilizing that new wing for childcare. I will turn it over to Cheyenne.
All right, next up, I'm Cheyenne Scary. I don't know all of them, so thank you for letting us present on this. We are ready to kick off marketing the Glenfield School for future development. So that's kind of what we're asking today is let us loose on marketing the school so that when the county's done with it, it can be quickly turned over into another productive use and get back on the tax roll. So we are ready to release our request for expressions of interest. It's a process where we put the documents out there December 1st. I think you've got them in front of you. They've done a beautiful job in putting that together. As always, we have a great marketing eye in our office, with the goal to be accepting letters of interest by January 31st. So fairly quick turnaround, but we think we can be pretty targeted in getting the word out there. We've got some developers that we've kind of been talking about different projects in Lewis County that we'll definitely get it in front of them quickly. Then once we receive a number of expressions of interest, we have a committee that we could put together quickly to review and score those projects based on a scoring matrix. So this is where I get really nerdy and build out this matrix so that we can identify what our priorities are for the project. If we're looking at wanting a really good community use, wanting something that's really going to contribute to the tax base, all of those things, we're going to score what our priorities are and then how each potential buyer would contribute to those. That process is super fun. And then the committee can go back to the top three, the ones that score the highest, and talk to them some more about the business plan, their financials, their experience in general in business, but also their experience in doing what they say they're going to do. This is the piece that no bad will for South Lewis School, but this is the piece that was missing the last time. And this is the piece that the county doing this alone wouldn't be able to do, right? Because you just got to go out for bids, whereas using the LCDC, using Naturally Lewis as an arm to get this marketing out there, we're going to have a much higher probability of finding a good use of something that's going to make it, and the county's not going to have to buy it back in 6 months. So with the goal being that we have a developer selected by May 2023. That's about in line with when the county thinks they could be out. I'm in my head saying probably more like fall for somebody else to be moving in, just knowing how construction goes. But that would be the goal, to have at least somebody selected, and that way you can do all the paperwork for the transfer.
Do you have comfort in a response to the RFP?
I do. I think we have a number of options, and if it's kind of sounding a little bit quiet, we can reach a little farther. Right, and so this font is funny. Why should the county partner with the LCDC? We, like I said, we can market it for an economic development outcome, not just the highest bidder. $400,000 today is great, but if we have 200,000 and 15 jobs created, that's a lot better for the longevity. That's more sustainable long term. We also have, this is kind of my wheelhouse. We have knowledge of all the various financing and incentive programs when we select the buyer. So we can say, hey, we know of this grant coming up, let's layer that into your financing. This is how much capital you have. This is how the IDA can play in the game. This is how the LCDC can play. And then we don't just wash our hands of the property once it sells. We have programs in place to help that buyer, help them with their business planning, help them be sustainable. Also, we have creative ways to bring funds to support economic development if we do this project. So if the county gives us the building or the transfer of the building comes to the LCDC, profit from the sale could go back into our other programs like the vacant property revitalization program, just to keep it kind of a revolving fund of getting properties turned back into active use. We have lots of partnerships, especially with planning. It's been amazing working with them on these projects, and I think that can continue. And we're just really interested in keeping those partnerships and reaching out to the community. If it can be a local developer, as we've seen in Port Lyden, that's a win for everyone. So after the sale of the building, the LCDC, Lewis County Development Corporation, where this property would make the most sense to land, contracts with the IDA for administration. So that means the buyer will have access to everyone in our office, naturally Lewis County IDA, Lewis County Chamber of Commerce and Tourism Promotion Agency, as well as the partnership I've mentioned with planning. It kind of becomes a comprehensive team to really help a business get going. And then if the LCDC and IDA financing or incentives are involved, that gives us, I think this is a key point, that gives us an opportunity to have things in contract that if the property needs to be recovered on the case of default, then it can be. So in a leaseback situation involved with a pilot, for example, there are clawback opportunities. So I think that's a big concern is if we sell the property to somebody, what if they don't make it? Is it just gonna become a Lions Falls school?
That was one of the things we were worried about early on with South Lewis. And they either didn't have the ability to or chose not to engage in this type of purchase agreement. Because if it wasn't for the county doing our project and needing that building, it was very evident that the buyer that they had selected was not going to live up to the expectations that they had promised. And once that had happened, there was no incentive or authority of any government agency to take control back of that building. That guy could have taken out all the copper piping, he could have scrapped anything of value, pulled out the gym floor, left it for taxes. Then the county taxpayers, 10 years later, fix it, tear it down, pretend that $3 million.
People do that.
People do it all the time, unfortunately. So, we need to be thoughtful about the future of this building. And that's where LCDC and IDA have the tools to do that, where the county government and the school district didn't. We don't have the tools to do that.
Right, and to Ryan's point, the county is to be commended for stepping in and getting this school back in responsible hands. So we don't want to see the same mistake made again. And so I guess we're asking that the county consider transferring ownership of the school to the LCDC and giving us the green light to go ahead on the RFPI.
But I don't think what they mentioned is transfer it for like $1. So the LCDC is not looking to purchase it. They're looking for us to transfer it and get it back on the tax rolls.
Right, with the understanding being, my last bullet point up there, what we would like to put in place for any properties that come to the LCDC in this manner is that the LCDC's expenses are covered, their marketing expenses, administrative expenses involved with the transaction, but the majority of those funds, the majority of the purchase price goes right back into a fund to do the same thing again, so that if there are properties the LCDC can purchase, we're able to purchase those and flip them again.
What is the size of the site? Not the buildings, but the
5 acres.
5 acres? So there's not much outside, the building covers most of it.
Might be wrong, but it might be, Joe said it's 6.
Okay,
Closer to
6.9.
six.
Says it was 7.
6.9.
6.9, almost 7.
Okay. I'm wrong.
Welcome to my world.
So some of the current concerns that I have with transferring this to the LCDC, first, I think it's a great idea, but the LCDC nor the IDA have the funding ability to cover the utility costs of this building for, let's say, if it takes a year after we vacate it in order to fill it with a developer or make it occupiable or whatever happens. I think the county needs to think about, how those utility costs are going to be covered before we transfer it.
As well as other costs.
Yeah, having said that, we don't have a handle on what it costs to heat that building at this point, because we We haven't been through a winter, so, but our guesstimate is it could be $30,000 or maybe $50,000 would cost of natural gas at this point to heat it.
We had that figure somewhere from, well, obviously not from our experience, but South Louis provided us with their history of that. I think it's in the materials actually for marketing, the Reeves study, they've got information on projected utility expenses. But that's a great point, Larry. I mean,
It is.
we give it to the LCDC for $1 and then we could pay them to keep it running, I guess.
So, Joan, where do we go from here? What are you looking for us to do?
This is actually the first time I'm aware of any of this.
Oh, okay.
But one thought that was running through my head with Larry's concern is, for a period of time, could we lease it to the LCDC with the right to market and do those things so that we pay the utilities on it still as the owner?
What I had thought-
Or else we would
What I
just-
had thought is this, we retain possession of the building straight
Yeah.
through until they've got a viable candidate, then we transfer it to.
Right.
So we maintain the building, keep it, we tried to think ahead when we did the maintenance agreements, for example, the mowing and ice removal, snow and ice removal agreement, when we did the boiler, and electrical inspections agreement, we signed those as 2-year deals. So, obviously with opt-outs at any point, but, we recognize that this is not something we're just gonna be able to dump on the side of the road once we move into our new building next spring. So what I was imagining is there's nothing preventing them from doing all this marketing work, and you give them access to the building and all that. And then they've got something, close to coming together, then we transfer it to LCTC. So if we were to sell it ourselves, we'd have to just simply put it on auction and take the highest bidder. We wouldn't be able to add any incentives or clawbacks or, vetting the way that these guys can.
That sound okay to you, Shane?
Yeah, the only concern I would have is a developer looking at the property, being concerned about the fact that we don't actually own it. But I think if we had an MOU
Well, we
in
could do
place
an MOU.
with the county, I think we could navigate that.
Where we authorize you to market it with the intention of selling it to the LCDC,
Yeah, I think an MOU
Yeah.
navigates that just fine for a developer.
Have all the background work done, so when we're ready to transfer, the transfer's simple, and then the LCDC has the ability to sell it to someone else.
So you'd like to do that sooner than later, obviously, from the time.
I mean, we'd like to launch the RFEI process December 1st, and then we can work on an MOU in the meantime.
Okay.
Jen doesn't.
So maybe we could have something formally for the December 22nd meeting. That work for you guys too?
If you want to get started.
Pardon me?
I like that idea.
That's what my question is, do we need a motion to move forward with the marketing?
Yeah, we should
Did
make
you
a
want to
motion.
start that sooner? I think that they want to December 1st, start marketing in December. Ideally, we've got somebody moving in, the day you guys are moving in.
I'll make that motion.
Point back here, you don't have soil and water moving out of that building until spring of '24.
Yeah, that's true. Soil and Water's new building won't be ready this spring of '23. They'll be ready hopefully sooner than that. But, yeah.
That's your project time.
So if we were fortunate enough to move this along, we would have to find a home, soil and water.
Or depending on who they get, maybe they're.
Lease it from them, but that's weeds. We can handle that.
We get somebody interested that is a legitimate developer, 5 staff at Soil and Water, who we love and are wonderful partners, but they'll have to move again. So,
Well, maybe perhaps there's a way, that we can just keep in mind. Likewise, if the KinderCare, if we are able to work out, a plan to put them in there, we feel like with the right developer, it could be a huge benefit to them
to keep on-site childcare for their employees. So it's all gonna be dependent on who we find as the developer. But we are gonna keep that in there as a potential long-term lease for whoever takes it over.
So I made a motion to allow you to start the marketing.
Yeah.
December 1st. Josh seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
All three.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Next up is Connor. She said that says Bartlett. Yeah, I guess so. Hasn't been one since COVID started.
Trying to keep it quick for everyone. Just wanted to give an update on the website. I think I might have been about a year ago when I made the presentation saying we need to update our website for this reason, that reason, the other reason. Taxpayers are paying a lot of money for us to commit services, and we should be very transparent about what we're presenting to the public. All of our information should be readily available, that is public knowledge, and it should be accessible to on mobile devices. It should be accessible to those that have audio or visual impairments. So there's a lot of modernization that we need to do on the current website to make it more accessible and more consumable to the public so that they're more aware of what's going on. And some of the byproducts of that too are just, it is an attraction. So when the site looks good, when someone's looking up where they're moving, if it looks modern, it looks like it's well kept, it looks like their taxpayer dollars are going to a government that are a little bit organized, that can be a plus. So right now, if you go to lewiscountiny.gov, it says it's under construction. Keep in mind that URL is going to change. That's another check that we're going to be marking up, because New York State says that they want all the counties to be moving to a .gov instead of a .org. So that's what we're moving towards. But right now, here's a preview of how it's coming along. We've got all of our new branding on there, and Coughlin has done a good job working with us, and we're in the process of working with departments on what content is going to start showing up on this website. And it's kind of a push and pull, because sometimes the departments don't know what they want on the website until they can see how it looks on the website. So we're working on migrating data that needs to be migrated and getting rid of data that doesn't need to be on the website and going from there. But we want to make the user experience as intuitive as possible. There's just a lot of information, a lot of departments, a lot of different things happening on a county website. So, for example, the planning department on their own, their website's big enough to be their own, they could have their own website. They've got planning and community development, they've got municipal zoning, they've got newsletters, they have their own planning board, they have public notices. They've got a Sustainably Lewis program. So the idea is we'll have this top navigation to help, to sort the high level services that the county provides. And then depending on the page size, you might even have some navigation to find out, I need to find my information from the planning department. They run this Sustainably Lewis thing. How can I go and find it? We want to make it as quick and easy as possible to get to these portions of the website. And we're obviously looking for continuity in how how our information is being portrayed. And across the departments, there should be some similarities. So whether that's contact information or documents that are being provided by those departments. So the planning department's an example of a bigger website department. But we do have, for example, general services, the county attorney's website. There's not a lot on Jones' website. They've got some general contact information and a little brief blurb about what they do, and maybe a FOIL form. So again, this is not 100% complete, but you got a really small website. It's good for them to have a page that if people need to find something, it's there. And of course, when you're searching the website in the search bar, it'll show up.
Ain't that true?
This is more. And we are working, we're working to modernize some other things within the site as well. So, for example, human resources and civil service job applications. I know when I applied for my position, I could not apply online. I had to print out some crazy ridiculous form and mail it in or, hand deliver it, which I thought was ridiculous. But
That was
maybe
the
that's-
test, you did it.
Yeah, I passed the test.
Do you want?
Yeah.
Or IT.
I guess I wanted the job bad enough. I knew what my first task was gonna be, which was remapping the job listing set. So the idea would be to have some employee resources on here as well for the human resources. So, maybe, for example, the health insurance page, we have just some contact info where you need to go to apply for your health insurance and so on and so forth. Let's say somebody types in something, they got the wrong link and they show up on the website. Oh, yeah, hello citizen, it appears you are. Ryan is here to help.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. And then there's just some fun
There's
facts
that
on the
cape
website as well. So.
I did not know about
I want some of those.
I'll have a little fun with that one, but,
Now you know why you wanted to give an update.
Give me a little more hair.
So, all that to say.
That's what I'd say too.
All that to say, the progress is being made, and we're doing our best to check all the boxes, make sure that this is going to be what we set out for it to be, that it was going to be accessible, consumable, and also that it would just look really nice and have little miniatures of Ryan and all over the place. So
Hopefully not.
stay tuned. Hopefully, we're hoping to launch by the end of Q1 next year. And then that'll be kind of like the 90% mark. We're 90% there. We're ready to go live. We'll make this our main website. And then if there's that last 10% of things that need to get moved over, we'll be doing that too. So I hope to have another update for you in the first quarter of next year. Thank you for your
And a newer picture of
newer picture of Ryan.
Super Ryan.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I don't need so.
Who maintains our current site?
The hosting is through a company called EvoGov out of Colorado, but it's mostly, I guess, maintained by IT, and some of the departments do update portions of the site.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Now, Ryan, I assume you're gonna be the updating thing in the discussion.
Actually, Cassandra's going to take.
Well, that's good, because I was gonna remind you that Tom was watching.
I'm sure he is.
Okay, so for the standing rules, updates discussion, we would like to, change the language so it's easier to read and comprehend. Possibly add definitions of words, somewhere in the beginning. Have a section on decorum that's clearly defined, indicate that we're following Robert's Rules of Order, have a continuity of government section, and, kind of outline, I think we touched on special committee versus ad hoc committee, the differences, and their roles. A couple things to think about that aren't necessarily in the standing rules right now would be to have a resolution at the beginning of the year to renew all contracts. So one resolution renewing all contracts that are basically, just annual renewals that we do every single year. And then we would have a monthly report to go along with that so that you could see which ones are actually being done, maybe some specifics or information about that. Right now, we have the authority to have the chairman sign contracts that are 5,000 or less. We would like to possibly increase that amount. It seems to be working really well. So we were looking at increasing it possibly up to 25,000, which should help reduce some resolutions that are in that range. And then,
Can I just add to that?
yes.
Especially if we're talking about renewal agreements or standard agreements that a department has with, a provider or something. Not anything brand new perhaps, but something that's pretty routine, because they're gonna be reporting on it in their monthly report anyway.
And this doesn't get rid of contracts or agreements with these vendors, it just would eliminate the resolution coming before the board. And then I think we talked about possibly eliminating the need for motions on RFPs or RFIs or bids, because in our thinking, we would always need a resolution for that agreement to award the bid and then contract with that vendor. So this would give departments the authority, I guess, to have Brian Hanno put together an RFP and then send it out. We would obviously let you guys know about the bid opening dates and all that, but then we would do the resolution with the recommendation based on that bid opening, instead of having motions all the time for these things. Because by the time we go through committee with the motion and then wait for the board meeting, you know, that's about 2 weeks.
Right.
And we just lose time, and it never lines up good with having the recommendation then in time for the next committee. So it's a 2-month process, really.
In that particular case, could we have a notification, and that way, if a particular legislator had an issue with it, we could look into it prior to the, you know,
Notification that the RFP is going out.
yeah,
Some kind of a monthly list of these RFPs are.
right.
Well, even for
And
the
even if
committee
it was just
meeting,
an email or
for the
whatever.
committee meeting, we could add that as RFPs that are going out.
One thing we thought of is just allowing the committees to have the ability to motion for an RFP rather than having to wait all the way until the full board.
Well, you're still on the same cycle, though, even if it starts with a committee.
Well, if it starts with a committee, theoretically, if we're organized, you should be able to ask for it a couple months ahead of, you know, when you need it. But what ends up happening is, like Sandra said, it goes to committee, and then sometimes it's 2 or 3 weeks before it goes to the full board. And then, you know, you often have resolutions with blank numbers in it because we're waiting to vet the opening of the RFP and the vendors so we can get the numbers plugged in before the board meeting. I don't know. A lot of this about the resolutions and the motions is, it's not about, yes, it's about streamlining, and really it's about organization, you know. We have still too many late resolutions, and we still put things in front of you guys, I think, sometimes without enough vetting. And part of that is we just put too many things in front of you guys. I mean, we just do you guys do more than 300 resolutions a year and dozens of motions. You know, if we could just get that down a little bit, then I think the things that do wind up on your lap could be a little bit more thorough, because it does feel sometimes like there are still some more haphazard, even though we've really tried to reel that in.
I knew you'd get in here.
I think, I personally would support giving the department heads the authority to, or the authority to initiate an RFP. As long as it comes up for a discussion at a committee meeting, that this is being drafted, going out for publication or whatever, so legislators have time to comment on it before it actually goes out, but not to uphold the process by having to go through an actual vetting process by the committee.
What about just a motion by the committee instead of having to go to the full board? That would be helpful.
Well, that still holds you up a little bit, doesn't it? And it takes away the authority from the department head.
A little bit, but it's an improvement from where we're at. The other thing we talked about similarly was grants, same thing. You know, there are annual, so we're not consistent at all. Was that on your list? I'm sorry.
No, but I do remember us discussing it, we're just not consistent.
So if you get an annual grant, like OFA is funded by 16 annual grants, they never come before you every year to, oh, we're applying and we got approved for that money. Yet we make radio grant every year, Bob McKenzie every year. Those are annual grants. And then we have programmatic grants where some departments are sharp and on top of it and bring their programmatic grants. Like, for example, we just had one from Cassie a couple months ago about the composting, right? That's a new program that's going to cost us, even though it's in kind, and probably won't cost us very much. The board should have the opportunity to say, hey, wait a second, we don't, what we don't want is money to fall into your lap and say, oh, if you turn it down, you're turning down free money. I mean, the example I've been using is the city of Watertown with their fireman grant, right? The fire chief went out and got this grant for 5 more guys. City council wants to reduce the number of firefighters. Now it sits in their lap and we put you guys in a bad spot. So we want to make sure that we're consistent about how we handle those grants, and I don't think we have been. We haven't had a problem, but we haven't been consistent about it either.
So is it okay for the rest of them to chime in?
I was just gonna ask if anybody wants to say anything about that?
I think the $25,000 is appropriate for, the contracts. And I think that we have department heads that we place there that we trust, so the grant issue, I don't think it'll be an issue.
Andrew? Dick?
I think the discussion's been favorable, feel like I could go with it.
I'm wondering if, like, for the grants, would it be possible, like, we get these notices twice a month, basically. If we just had a separate page that told about the upcoming grants or grants that were being applied for, what it's for, the amount that we're applying for, and how much it's gonna cost the county, just so if it doesn't need to be 10 pages long, a short blurb, what we're getting for it, what it's gonna cost us, and what we could be getting the money for.
And information.
And when it's gonna be submitted, and possibly when it might be awarded. And if we had that on our radar constantly.
We couldn't slip one by in.
Right, and if there's a question about it, we, maybe at this, each meeting, we could bring it up, okay, here, the grants, was there any questions on the grants?
So, yeah, and it could be, Jackie, who's a wonderful department, we have all wonderful departments, I'm just using an example. She goes out and lands this DEC grant for this new tractor that allows us to do this thing. Well, maybe, you guys didn't want us to get into that new type of business, you know what I mean? It's stuff like that,
I will just comment, a majority of my grants, I need your approval via resolution to submit the grant with my grant application. So just keep in mind, it's not like you're never gonna see the 6 resolutions a month from me. It's just,
Same thing with the highway bridges.
Yeah.
They require.
there's certain requirements, like we have the Stolen grants that are just like, we have Larry sign off every quarter on that we file for those reimbursements. But there are specific ones where we need to prove that you support the grant application. So unfortunately, you'll still see my grants.
But on that short word, we can put at the bottom, resolution required. All right, and it's good. I would think if you had something like that, where it was all the grants were together, you could keep track of them in your mind much better than all separate all over the place.
Well, there's literally dozens.
What do you think,
Hundreds.
Sandra?
And that's a great thing.
Hundreds.
I think that would work as long as we have this monthly report going out with the board packet. Because that would be the very beginning of the month. If there's any discussion that you want to have, you could have it, prior to the meeting. And then if we need to stop a grant application at that point before it gets released, we could.
You got any more on your list?
I did have a little blurb about the idea of having an appointed day each month for CDBG hearings or possibly bid openings, that type of thing. Making sure that we record and then, post the video or something on our website. So anybody that couldn't physically be there can still know the information that, the bids were and
I think that's a good idea.
I like that. Onondaga County does that.
what county.
Onondaga County, they have a web page or a webcast. if you will.
Webcast.
Yep, you join, like, a lot of times I'll drop off or my company will drop off the bid. And if you don't want to stay, you go back and I can watch it live, real
Do
time.
they do it on a particular day?
It varies. I mean, they have, the DOTs, Thursdays, every Thursday at 10:30, Onondaga County's 2:00. That's for their road projects and bridges, but then they have other bid openings on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. It's not just one day a month because
Yeah, you
backlog,
never
you
see-
never.
yeah.
But we can at least, record and post.
So Cassandra, you've been consistently saying, we'd like to do this. Is we you?
Well, I think all of these ideas are great ideas.
We had.
There was a group of us that came up with them.
Nice cottage.
It wasn't just, but just going back to the first one, where, the resolution, one resolution at the beginning of the year for renewals, like, how does everybody feel about that? Because that could reduce a huge amount of resolutions.
I'm thinking it should be at the end of the year because it's a renewal for the next year.
That's coming.
Okay.
Would they all be listed?
Yes.
Every month, we could make a list, which would be another page to the, packet that
They usually
shows.
get all listed, like, in some of these resolutions for DSS, for instance, we boxed out, we used to do separate resolutions, Jeff, for.
Okay, and I saw that. the
Yeah, so
boxes.
now we're trying to incorporate as many as possible into one resolution with the specific information for each particular contract that we know you wanna see, what it's for, how much is it for, what period of time.
And I think that's fine. As long as they were done last year.
Right.
Yeah, not new ones.
Right, I mean,
Makes sense.
And I think programmatic is different than, for example, like the security that we're, it's in the budget, we did it last year. That's still probably something you guys want to weigh in on. I think we got to show some
Yeah.
discretion on issues that, are important to the legislature.
So
Right, I
how many renewal contracts do we have that are more of an increase annually than, say, a COLA or something like that? Do we?
Most of them are programmatic, so it depends on how many people do it. For example, we do 3 resolutions every year, which we maybe reduce this year, but typically we did 3 for translation services. Because probation has to have a translation service, the jail has to have a translation service, I think public health has to have one, and so those would all be resolutions. It's only based on how many people use it.
It's a rate base.
Right, rate-based. A lot of these are rate-based type of things,
But for dollar amount programs, Larry, to answer a little bit, we'll give you a little bit more detail. Most of them are COLA increases. And if there's any increase to the base payment, hourly rate or per family or whatever it is that we have to do, the question is, do you want us to bring that forward to the board in a separate resolution, or do you just want that information if the department has put it into the budget, right?
Well, I'm thinking it's gonna be in the original contract to start with. I'm just thinking, some way of refreshing everyone's mind that this is what we signed on to 3 years ago, whatever.
We can do that too. We could say the base rate was X in 2022, 2023 is, so you can see that number.
Good.
We could do that.
Overall, we're.
Is we you?
Overall, like this year, I think we're gonna hit, like, we haven't done our annual bet yet, but my guess is we're gonna be around 350 resolutions.
Is that your bet?
I looked.
Lock them into it, lock them into it.
But, when I first started, my first year that, Andrea and Dick and Phil and Larry remember, we were close to 600, we did 580 resolutions.
Right.
And we had a stack this big, and Jerry King would always ask me, Ryan, now, is that an increase from last year? And I'm going through a stack of 75 resolutions a month, We can't be at our best for you guys and make sure that we're tackling important issues if we're still putting some of this stuff that's kind of day to day. So that's the point. We just continue to get that down a little bit.
The other thing too is some of these renewals, it's state mandated services, so, and sometimes the rates are dictated by the state, so we really don't have.
Like free kindergarten, foster care, we don't even have.
Can you put together a proposal for us?
Yes, with all the suggested changes and
Yeah.
everything.
Look how excited she is.
Guess who we is now?
Yeah. Well, that, it would be a helpful thing, and then we could act on it on December 22nd.
Yeah.
Right? That sounds like a plan? All right, you guys good?
I'm good with it.
Lisa, you okay with that? All right. Again? Okay. We're good with that then?
Great.
Great. Eric passed out this thing, he wanted me to mention it. Strangely enough, Lewis County led all of the counties in the state, other than New York City, of course, in increase in sales tax. Our increase was 16.8%. And there, as you can see on the sheet, a lot of them are single digits. So I thought that was a kind of a point of interest.
I just wonder how much of that is related to online sales, and we didn't get sales tax on before. And because we're a remote, rural county, you're almost dependent on buying a lot of stuff through the internet. That they pay sales tax before they change the law. So it'd be interesting to see how much that number changes this year to next year.
Right. But it is substantial.
Yeah, it's huge. I would never dream.
Well, we're gonna hit $17 million this year likely, and the first budget that I did, we budgeted about, I believe it was 10.5 million. So that's pretty steep. 5 years, 6 budgets.
Well, I guess if nobody has anything else to have at it, Dick.
I don't. When we got the budget preliminary to take a look at, I have the distinction of being the representative from Lowell, so that's part of the historical society. And there was a question in there, was it going to stay, I think, 35, or go to 50, or why didn't it go to 50, it went down and stuff like that. So I asked the historical society to send us some paperwork. Didn't really expect that much paperwork, but they sent in a slew of it. And since then, I've had a couple of the folks in here today that are fellow legislators saying, are we at 35 or 50? I said, I think right now, if we don't do anything today, we're still at 35. I think that's how it stands. So they were asking if I'd clarify that, and then we could discuss that a little bit today.
Dick, I had actually mentioned to Ryan that maybe we ought to give him the courtesy of talking about that, but then Ryan said that, go ahead, Ryan.
Well, I had Jonathan Miller up in my office yesterday because he's part of our facade program review committee, right? The historic loans and buildings and whatnot. And he was asking about our process. And we talked a little about it in our chair luncheon as well. You can absolutely discuss it if you want to discuss it now. The motion that to amend the budget, it can come through committee, that's fine. But you've got to do it at the next Tuesday's meeting anyway. So, it really is up to you guys how you want to proceed. They are planning on attending the 22nd, meeting on the 22nd. And they're gonna speak and say a few things. But if you want to do a resolution now through finance and rules to be prepared for the 22nd, you can do that too. So however you guys want to move with it.
My only wish was that they would provide us with a P&L sheet and a balance sheet to substantiate their request. Does that happen?
I asked Jonathan about that yesterday, and they said, we're a small organization, we don't have those things. They don't get audited and they don't run.
Provide us with last.
They don't know how much money they
Their
have?
tax return in.
Okay, I told them, I asked for whatever they had, and they said, well, we don't even really do a budget.
They have last year's income tax return. Says that.
Yeah.
I think with that, and I asked for some details and whatnot, and he did do a substantial pack. That was the outreach. That was over the top from others. And all the information he provided was, I was more or less shocked at what they do down there. They do quite a bit, but I do agree with Larry, if we can get that, just a rough balance sheet to show operating expense.
That would be doing due diligence, you know, that's what we should ask for.
It's just checks, it's just, I'm not saying checks and balances, but it's showing
Sure.
operation.
So I guess at this point, we'll,
So if you want to make a motion at the meeting on the 22nd, what, to change any line item, revenue or expenditure, you can do that, and it will get turned into a resolution. So as long as, you know, you motion second vote, it'll get turned into a resolution. You will have amended the budget, and then you pass the budget. So you don't have to act today. However, if you want something in writing, a pre-written resolution for next week, you can do that too. So
No, that clarity answers my question. I wasn't sure which committee even to bring it up with, so I kind of waited under Ways and Means, which used to be Finance and Rules now, so I thought that was the committee to bring it up to.
Yeah. And what do you think, if there's a draft and then the information procured, it's drafted? Or just wait entirely?
well, I'll give you my personal opinion. I think they're asking for way too much money. And I wouldn't be opposed to increasing, but not that much. And if we increase them as in a percentage basis, for instance, then maybe we should increase on a percentage basis Constable Hall and the other 5 museums and the Railroad Museum. But if we gave them 10% and we did it to the rest of them, that really wouldn't amount to a whole lot of budget impact. But to give that much money that they're requesting all at once to them and them only, I'm having doubts about that. Dick, go ahead.
Yeah, Phil, one thing, Larry and I talked at some length of this, and the thing I agree with Larry on is, right now, I don't understand how we decide all those people, whether we put 2,000 down, 1,500, or 5,000. So I think, and Larry, I think you agree with me, we should develop some kind of a procedure. So if we're asking of the one, we ask it of the others to provide this financial information. And I think it doesn't hurt to ask for that. I think we should. So that's my thought on that.
I think, I think that it should be, we should have a packet that if they're gonna apply for funding or grant or whatever you wanna call it from the county, the financial data should be there, the tax return. Anyone that does payroll does it through software. If you do payroll through software, you got a balance sheet, you got a P&L. It's there, maybe you don't know how to access it, or never have accessed it. But anyways, we just reward people that come forward to the county at this point, and it's all based on emotion, how much money we give them, rather than being substantiated by an actual financial need.
Larry, you're coming up with some good ideas today.
Well,
It's the right thing to do.
It is.
It is.
So the system that we have, if you can call it a system, is simply what I inherited from Liz, which
I
is,
know it, yeah.
so Phil, why did all the museums get $1,000? Because that's what they got when I got the budget in 2017. And then last year, we felt it was, the general consensus was time to give everybody an increase, so we went to 2,000. But that, beyond that,
it
it's
was
not.
based on emotion, it wasn't based on any financial substantiation.
I think that how it's working right now, it has been working okay, but I do think that these organizations should be giving us more information, some basic information. If you want $50,000 from us, from the county, then I feel like it's not unreasonable to get a P&L and this other information.
Exactly.
$50,000 is a lot of money comparatively to what we give to other organizations.
It's not, it isn't 0 or 50, it's 35 or 50. So it's a $15,000 difference for this particular year.
And we did go, they were 22,115 for a long, long time.
Yeah.
The first time they got an increase was last year. We went from 22,115 to 35.
And that was, based on the fact that they were going to hire the county historian. So they went to 35 and they have yet to hire the county historian, and that's the basis or the substantiation for this year's request.
That's correct.
My understanding, I could be totally wrong, was that the corporation itself is the county attorney. Is that right? Or no, they actually have to have like an individual?
You're 100% correct, except for one word, county historian, yes.
You said attorney.
I'm sorry.
I'm not taking on that job.
Outsource it to a firm.
This office does not do legal
It's just not doing it. This office is not doing this.
So they're, I don't even think that they have a plan to hire an individual who's gonna wear, county historian. Am I wrong on that, or?
No, I think you're right there. They plan to at least increase someone's hours
Yeah.
to cover that.
Cause they just got one office guy, I
That's
think,
cool.
right? And then it's just basically a working board, or? Yeah.
Sort of. What Ryan said is a part of the point. They went from forever at 22,115, and then all of a sudden we went to 35. The museum were forever at $1,000, and then we all of a sudden went to 2,000, which I was all for. But if we did it annually at a X percent, 2% or whatever, like you did for. Yeah, there would be no catch up, and everybody would be able to depend upon it if we did it annually instead of all of a sudden. Geez, I'm talking my hands like you.
It makes the words come.
Does it?
That's why it's such trouble with the mic.
So I think we need to really think about the structure of how we do things for these nonprofits. Yeah. Up right along with
And you know,
the
there-
things you're saying.
And I would say there are others that have come to me during budget season over the years, the Association of the Blind, for example. There's no reason why they are any more important or less important than other organizations that are funded, other than I've tried to keep a pretty tight door on funding new organizations because you don't want to keep, open the floodgates. So, I would support a different approach to looking at this, or at least a consistent approach.
But having said all that, I still believe that it is within the scope of the budget officer's decision, based on a new platform or packet or whatever they submit. It's his decision on, where they end up. And maybe we have the final review, and if there's an agency that doesn't like the answer, they can come to us for review. But I don't want to get back into the old situation where we had every nonprofit come to the Board of Legislators, meeting through the budget process to make the request to the legislature rather than the budget.
If we had a consistent form where all of them had to fill it out, and then if any legislator had a question, or they, because you get lobbied, this year it's Historical Society, last year it was libraries, right? The year before that, I think the Krogan Railroad Museum was, was so there's always one. But if we had something at least to go back and look at, maybe if you're only getting 1,000 or 2,000, you only have to fill out one page. But if you're getting, 10 to 20,000, Cornell Cooperative Extension sends, like you're talking about profit loss, balance sheet, budget, they send everything. But we're giving 300 this year, $40,000 or whatever. So.
I agree with that. You do a 1-2 page form that you get above 25,
Right.
50, it's more complex. You gotta show your P&L.
Right.
Because you're
Depending on how
you're
much
having
you-
some operating costs. You have,
I would like that form to see what they're doing for Lewis County.
Community.
The community too. I mean, yeah, you might have a name there, but how much are they actually doing? Because I don't know all the organizations, and nobody else, I don't think, does either. So it'd be nice to know what they've done for us.
It would be, and I think it would be interesting because they probably do a lot more than what we think they
That's what I
do.
mean, it would be an eye opener, yeah, in some cases, it could be.
I had no idea what the Historical Society did or didn't do until we got all that information. And 1 or 2 pages, that if some of the organizations follow that, that was like 10, 12 pages, so. When we do this, we may want to get it to the right size.
So
You
for
get
the,
people out there that just want to keep talking and talking and talking, and they.
Right.
We don't want to give it to the one.
Fill in the blank.
Exactly, yeah.
so for the present, what would we like to do? What do you think? Wait for their presentation or do something now or?
Brian, go ahead.
No, you start.
If Brian can talk to Jonathan and get some of that information, the 22nd,
Wait for more information.
yeah, information.
But I agree with you, Phil. I think that's a big jump.
So we will not act on that today. We'll wait for more information.
Can you email it out, Ryan, just so we
Yeah.
can?
Yeah, we could probably get a hold of their tax return without even needing to get it from them.
That work for you, Cassandra?
Yeah,
All right.
absolutely.
You like the idea of a standard form as well?
Yes. I think that would definitely improve things.
Because the letter that goes out has my name on it, it's actually from Cassandra.
Well, it's, I'm not being skeptical or criticizing, but there, is, when you start talking about what you provide to the community, it's sort of like building a resume. And there are people out there like Ryan who can, embellish their resume to make it look like, they've been president of the United States.
Are you saying that he bamboozled all of you?
Well, look who's sitting next to you.
So I think you have to take that into consideration when,
Yeah.
you look through some of these requests.
Well, I think that, and not to drone on about all this, but if, as part of that form, what fundraisers do you do? What are they doing for themselves
What are your
in addition
sources?
to
Right.
what we do for them? And I think a lot of them do fundraisers and have special events or whatever.
And to Jeff's point, in 5 sentences, describe what your agency does for the county, or for the community.
We did add one this year. We added SPCA for the first time. They sent a letter they never had before, or whatever they are, Blues County Animal Shelter.
Humane Society.
Yep, and I called, I thought it was an injuries district, so I called Patriot.
It is in my
I
district.
thought, it is? Oh, yeah. I thought it said, maybe I called Tom first, but anyway, so, that's not a great system. And saying this guy from your district is looking for money, what do you think?
Okay, let's go to dockets.
Phil, can I just mention something first? And I'm not sure if it's the right place, but I talked to Ryan when I first came in. There's a gentleman, Robert Ingersoll, that is turning 100 years old. I believe it's on the 7th of December. And his family called and asked me if the board would do a resolution or something to acknowledge his birthday. Brian and I talked, and maybe I would suggest that maybe just a letter from the board. I don't know what you all think. It doesn't matter to me. I'll probably never live to be.
We had one of these requests not too long ago. What do we do with that one?
I don't know.
Who was it that?
It was, I believe, somebody who passed away.
Yeah.
Oh,
And they were
Passed
asking
away.
for a specific day in remembrance of that
Yeah,
person, and we declined to
It was
do
two or
that,
three
just
months ago.
because we didn't want to set, precedents that we're gonna start.
That was part of the discussion we had about stadium rooms, is we should have a definition of what is a proclamation, what is just
Yeah.
community recognition,
Yeah. And I don't care what you do, I'm just bringing the information to you.
I think it'd be great for maybe Larry just say a few words or something. Not necessarily a proclamation.
There's a ceremony, it was on the news last night. gonna be at the school, anybody else see it?
Yeah, 3G it's gonna be.
Or at 3G, okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, and they had him on TV too the other day.
Yes, they did, yeah.
He seems to be with it.
If you want to meet him, he's at Lloyd's at
You know.
6:30 every morning.
Oh, is he really?
And he's glad to bring it with you.
Is he military?
Yeah, World War II.
Oh, yeah, he's,
So he's served. and-
Yeah.
oh, he,
World War
he served in some pretty good battles.
World War
I mean,
II.
that's,
World War II, yeah.
again, that kind of goes back to the conversation we just had there, is his history is he did serve country, community.
I don't even know where the man lives, but
Yeah.
because some of the families in my district, I got
Who's
the.
got Margaret? You?
Yeah, the lines
Yeah,
on the
so
side of the river.
I don't know.
Because I think a lot of that family does live in Hartford. I don't know.
Well, some live my way too.
Bob, I think, maybe moved down this way.
Maybe if we had like a letter.
I'd be happy to get a birthday card for all of you to sign and send to him.
Or we could have you call the moose.
Because it's kind of hard to do one and then the
Yeah.
ones we don't know about feel slighted, you know?
That's true.
So maybe the birthday card signed by us is the best way to go.
The employees get a day off.
You know, and I wouldn't mind recognizing someone if they wanted to submit a letter to the board. But we find that we need to recognize people that
Slippery slope.
I wonder if you had almost like I hate to say it, but like a form letter. And if somebody asked to be recognized, it would be a form letter and you fill in the name and the date, whatever. And Larry could sign it basically as chair of the board that we're recognized, Lewis County recognizes the 3100.
Even just send the guy a letter. from-
Well, that's what I'm saying, like a form letter.
It doesn't have
but
to
it's-
come in front of the board, I don't think.
There's
But I don't really care. Not too many people do live.
For this particular one, why don't we go until we can figure out what we want to do full time? Let's do a birthday card.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Is that sound okay? Is that all right with you on this?
Yeah.
Dick?
Yeah, it's okay with me.
Steve?
Do you want it to be appropriate though, or funny? I'm sorry.
Age appropriate.
And talk about
My
the slope
birthday's in
till
January.
very large print.
Okay,
Does it have
now
that braille
we'll
on?
do
Ready to do
dockets.
dockets?
Let's do dockets.
Okay, amending compensation plan with reference to Information Technology Department by rescinding resolution number 152-2022, which reestablishes one full-time computer systems assistant position.
Let me explain this real quick. We changed this position, which is vacant currently in the 2023 budget. But Connor has a candidate, which we haven't been able to find in the past, so instead of waiting until January 1st to hire this person, when it's hard to find candidates, we'd like to reclassify the position now, for the last month of the year, so we can hire the guy and get him started.
Any other comment? All in favor? Aye.
Authorizing agreement between the County of Lewis and Ring Central for new county phone system and equipment at an annual fee of $55,500, plus a fee of $100 per Yeelink T54W Prime business phone, and a one-time fee of $21,850 for professional services and deployment, design, and remote training services. The agreement also provides for the county to receive a one-time credit in the amount of $23,256.52 against the first year's reoccurring annual services fee.
This is part of the 2023 capital plan to start moving towards our new phone system. We're getting started on it now. We won't pay until this year.
All in favor?
Aye.
Approving and adopting the Lewis County Fair Housing Plan.
Any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Setting a second public hearing for Lewis County McNeil Apartments Repair Program under New York State CDBG project number 636 CVHR 50-22 to be held on December 22nd, 2022 at 10 o'clock a.m.
Any comments on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Setting a public hearing for input with reference to community development block grant funding for community development, public infrastructure, housing, public facilities, small businesses, and economic development needs under program year 2023 applications in amounts not to exceed 1.5 million to be held on January 3rd, 2023 at 5 o'clock p.m.
We good? We're good.
Those were all those CDGB hearings that Ryan's referencing, that if we could just,
There's no need for them to be at our board meeting. They could be Tuesday at noon. No one's gonna go no matter what. We don't need to hold everybody up on those evenings, you know what I'm saying?
Did you ask if they were all in favor?
All in favor?
Sorry.
Yeah.
Authorizing agreements between Lewis County Treasurer and various providers for auditing services.
All in favor?
Authorizing county treasurer to make necessary budget transfers to close the books for the 2022 fiscal year.
That was another smoothing out the process, wasn't it? 'Cause
Yeah.
We used to do resolutions on them, didn't we, Larry? Way back when.
I think you changed that before, Mike.
Phil, are we still on the treasurer's auditing one? Did we pass that one?
We passed that.
Can we go back to that for a second? Just so you know, we may be adjusting the Vineski and Company portion of it, because there's additional auditing services that run through the treasurer's office for DSS and for public health. We just have to confirm that those have to continue. So we may, in the final version for the board meeting, we may add those in.
There might be a
Yeah.
change. Okay. All in favor of the necessary transfers?
Okay, then I have a motion to authorize purchasing director Brian Pano to create and send out an RFP for annual online property tax auction professional services.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
And then the next motion is to cancel the December 2022 legislative committee meetings.
I don't know how we can do it without them.
Got 3 more meetings. You know, they do.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
I don't know how we're gonna decide about birthday cards. You don't know.
Yeah.
I was going to request an attorney-client privilege session just to bring the committee and board members here up to give them a status report on some litigation matters.
Need a motion to go into executive session.